Sorry, this is taking a little bit. I have not
It's
done this in
alright.
forever.
My brain is
It's
like a
alright.
pasta that's trying
Deck.
to type on up a computer.
I fucking hate this shit.
It's fine.
I hate doing this
Already,
kind of shit.
Yeah.
my brain is like a possum trying to write an essay on a
I
computer with
hate
these little
doing this
four
kind of shit.
cans.
Yeah.
I like.
My brain is like soup. It's about to spill out.
Four cans.
Yeah.
I like.
I have no fucking idea why
My
the
brain
hell
is
my
like
computer.
baba.
This is all
It's
messed up
about to
with the
spill out.
sound on my computer
Your brain is
because
yeah.
when I used to stream,
I
I didn't have to turn everything up to
My
max
brain
volume.
is
My
like
computer.
baba.
This is all
It's
messed up
about to
with the
spill out.
sound on my computer.
Your
Okay,
brain
it seems
is
like it works in the
yeah.
first video now. That
When I used
to
to
stream,
I
I
didn't
didn't have to
fucking
turn everything up to
My
max
brain
volume.
is
My
like
computer.
I'm gonna explode
And we're gonna
everything.
actually watch it.
Alright,
We're gonna actually watch the video finally.
I'm going to
Yay!
add from
Okay,
my
let me fucking share my screen, I guess. I'm gonna share. Sound may not be available when sharing a screen on your. Fuck you, retard. Let's see. Applications, no. This application? Okay, there we go. That might work. Okay. Tell me if you can hear it when you.
Hey, everybody.
Tell me when you're both joining, and then we'll see if you can hear it. Are you guys watching the stream now?
Yeah, I'm
screen
watching
share?
the stream.
Okay.
Hey, everybody. It's Faraday here.
Okay,
today I'm joined.
So I'll just add a fucking intro when if I edit this video down or something. Okay, let's watch.
By Michael Albert and Stephen Bennell, Destiny. So for anybody that doesn't know, Destiny is a Twitch streamer and YouTuber who produces content in which he debates
Michael
people
Albert,
on
the
different
daddy of
sides of
my,
the political
economic
spectrum.
system.
He is famous for his debates against the alt-right, in which many people have credited him for beginning their process of de-radicalization.
His face looks so serious.
Michael has been
He's always
active
fucking
in
serious. He
seeking
doesn't know what he's
social
getting
change
into. Michael Albert
in
is
his
the fucking
whole
serious.
adult
man
life,
talking
including
is like
founding and
me,
working at the
right?
South
Yeah,
End
he's
Press, then
he's
Z
the-
Magazine, and the web system
he's
called
the-
ZNet. He has also done
The
much
moderator.
writing,
The
including about the
The
economic
moderator.
vision called
The motherfucker.
participatory
The motherfucking
economics, or
moderator.
parecon,
Amen,
and
sister.
sometimes also
Where they-
called
they-
participatory socialism, which he co-originated with
Don't worry
Robin
about it.
Hanel,
Anyway.
and about the broader social vision, including other aspects of life, which he has also helped develop. Michael is currently hosting a podcast titled Revolution Z, which focuses on
yeah, for
issues
sure.
of vision and strategy,
ever
and
seen
is
him with
also
his
trying
shirt
to
off?
solicit interest in a screenplay he has written titled The Next
No.
American Revolution.
No,
Is there anything you
spare me
guys
the
wanted to say
horror.
about your introductions
The
before I move on to the
horror.
questions
wait,
or the
I've
topics?
seen that before.
Not me.
He looks
Think we're good?
like
All right.
Craig.
Sounds good.
He looks
So, okay, chat. So today, a radical reviewer, you guys can thank him for setting this up. He got Michael on here because he wanted to see a conversation between him and Steven. And so I asked Michael to send over some topics for debate. And so here's what we have. One, what constitutes a good economy? Two, does either capitalism
actually
or
watch the- let's
socialism
actually watch the
qualify?
thing now.
And
Let's
if
actually watch
not,
the thing.
three, what would be better? So, Steven, I'll go ahead and let you start with that if you'd like, and then we'll just go from there.
Okay, so I would say like a good
Steven is
economy, there's like
Destiny.
2 parts to it.
Yeah, Steven is Destiny.
One is like the actual like allocation of resources.
You guys can hear the video.
To make sure that resources are being
Yes, we can.
allocated in a relatively efficient manner, meaning there's not a lot of waste. And then another would be that like hopefully some like bare minimum standards are being met that we would decide in a society should be met for citizens. So for instance, that people have healthcare provided to them, have the means to secure some form of housing,
since I have
can acquire an
autism, I'm
education, have
gonna
transport,
stem
stuff
a
like that.
bit.
Like kind of like
But I'm
broadly,
still
roughly,
listening,
I would
so
say that
don't
like those are
mind
like the
guys.
2 important
Okay.
parts of like any economic system for me.
Don't be noisy.
And then did you want me to answer the
I won't.
capitalism socialism question or?
Well,
Oh,
Or why,
Mike,
why don't we stick with this for a little while?
yeah,
sure,
Michael
okay,
can
yeah.
go ahead and reply to that.
I have a question for you.
Uh-huh.
Why do you set the bar so low? That is to say, why not demand of an economy, or at least desire of an economy, and see if you can attain it more than you say? That it cause people to be solidaritous with one another, to have a sense of empathy, instead of a rat race in which they
He
view
has a
each
point
other as
though, to
means
be
to
honest.
personal
So true.
ends, or that
It's
it
always what I always think
delivered to
with
people an
capitalists and stuff.
Capitalists always set the bar so fucking low for what they consider a working economy. Oh, just provide healthcare and that's it. It's like, no. What about worker happiness?
Yeah,
What about worker satisfaction? What about everybody actually being happy with their fucking job? They never think about
yeah.
that. They just care about what produces the most money and whether you can. If you're like a sock dem, at least they'll care about giving you
Because
healthcare. But
they
other
don't
than
really know
that,
what the point of an economy is. It's not for the sake
no, they
of
just
profit or shit like
no. The
that.
point of a capitalist economy is to generate money, and that's all these people care
Exactly.
about. And it's fucking
Yeah, because
stupid.
like, what is the point of it? You know, like if you're gonna earn money and shit, but what's the point of having the money if it's not going to be for the people or something? Is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Gosh damn, this is gonna be a fucking shit
Anyway,
show.
let's continue.
You have the most fire starter.
Yeah,
He's
Mm.
gonna have the most fire start. Like
we definitely
you,
look
I
like
mean,
intellectuals coming out the gate right now.
ability to control their own lives, to self-manage. Now, I guess if you think these things are impossible, okay. But if these things are conceivable, wouldn't we want an economy to deliver them and more besides?
So there are two parts to this. So the first one is deliver to people a means to control their own lives. That can mean a lot of different things. So
Sure.
yeah. So like insofar as like just the ability to transport yourself and to like get an education and move, I would hope that like a capitalist system should be able to provide this, or my like ideal economic system should be able to provide for this as a baseline. I'm guessing when you say a means to control their lives, you mean probably more robust than that, like the ability
Much
to.
more.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, these are things. So I draw a distinction between like economic system and policy. So these are things that I would hope to achieve with some sort of government policy, because I don't know if there's any economic system that could like just by virtue of setting up or establishing that economic system will deliver on these things, like giving people
Okay.
like very high standards of everything.
But wouldn't you agree that if an economic system could be structured in such a way that people had self-managing say over their lives, that they had an influence on decisions roughly in proportion to the degree that they're affected, say, that would be a good thing? The closer you could get to that, the better it would be. The more that the economy instead created a situation in which you had virtually no.
You're gonna find, by the way, the best retort Destiny has is just eating pizza. That's gonna
I
be his
think he's
best
just
fucking.
chilling, to be honest. I
That
think at his
too.
head, I think in his head is like, I already have all the things I want to say. This guy's stupid. I'm just gonna chill
Every
while he
time,
says all his bullshit. You know,
every
I think that's
time
what's
Destiny
going through
eats a
his head.
pizza, you can tell he's nervous.
you know,
He can't look him in the
Yeah. Oh,
eyes.
really?
He can't
is
look
he
this
trying to
absolute
like
beast
Sigma?
of a man
Yeah.
in the eyes.
Yeah.
Like
Okay.
he's trying to look Sigma, but he's not.
Oh yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Say over most of the economic choices of society, what's produced, how much is produced, where it goes, that would be a worse thing. And similarly, just to throw in one more thing, there's the question of what people get. So the economy produces a whole bunch of stuff.
Yep.
Call it a big pie. Well, what share do you get? Do we want a situation in which an economy delivers some kind of equitable share to everybody? Wouldn't it be better to the extent that we had that? So in other words, I'm saying that beyond what you began with, probably you won't stop there, but beyond what you began with, we just shouldn't waste stuff, which I agree with. We should allocate in a sensible and if possible, and it is possible, an efficient fashion. Beyond that, the economy should also not push us into being our worst selves, but help us be our best selves, where that means solidarities with one another, equitable relations with one another, a fair allocation of resources and outputs, and so on, and control over our lives. If we could do all that, wouldn't you agree that that would be desirable?
Yeah, so I would say yes with two caveats. The first is that I don't intrinsically care about like democratic choices or democracy.
Fuck you. Big fuck you. Democracy is based. That is all.
Trust me, most people at these kinds of just have some sort of gripe with democracy because they have an issue with the younger generation being part of the majority vote.
Oh yeah, for sure. The majority of the people want democracy, but only for themselves at this point. Especially fucking boomers. They want democracy, but only for themselves.
That's why
You
a lot
see
of
that
them
with the
just want
GOP.
dictatorship.
There was this thing with
Yeah.
the GOP recently. I forget which state it was in, but they're actively going out of their way to make sure college students cannot vote or make it as inconvenient as possible for them to vote. And it's fucking slimy as hell.
Yeah, I heard.
And they know we fucking hate their asses, and we know, and I mean they know that we know they're the ones that are fucking up this economy, and
Hmm.
they're wanting to stop that. And
Yeah.
when I see people talking about like, oh, I don't give a shit about democracy, the, like, bruh, we are where we're at right now because of the lack of actual democracy. I don't mean to sound like a fucking one of those weird ass fucking leftists or whatever, but we really are in like a
I think they have like
rigged
a
system. We
very
don't have
limited.
we
Yeah.
don't exactly have a real democracy when our two main choices is right wing light and literal fascism. That's not a
Yeah.
real democracy, and I don't care if I sound like one of those woke scoldy fucking lefties like Jimmy Dore or whatever,
Yeah.
who I hate by
Yeah,
the way. I don't want to sound like them, but it's true. We don't live in an actual democracy. This is a fucking rigged system.
Yep.
I have a big
I
For
like
you
look
guys
consequence.
at
anyway.
France
What was that?
That's
as
probably
like
also for me too.
Oh yeah, that's
uh,
right. You don't live in America, fucking lucky ass.
It's fine.
mm,
At least I have a
whatever.
different perspective.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, so I would say yes with two caveats. The first is that I don't intrinsically care about like democratic
You're
choices
gonna hear him say intrinsically a lot, by the way, especially this one part, which made me laugh super hard.
or democracy. I have a big like consequentialist bend when it comes to societal outcomes. So if you could demonstrate some system that would produce all of these like positive effects on people's lives that was very undemocratic, I'd be okay with that. If you could achieve it through democratic means, which I'm generally in favor of, then I would be in favor of that as well. But assuming that everything you said was true, if there was some economic system that could like remedy all these problems without even needing complicated government policy, then yeah, of course I would have to be in favor of that, unless I had some strange marriage to like capitalist ideology or something.
Okay. And we probably will agree also, I think. We might feel it's the best you could do, but we will probably agree that capitalism doesn't deliver to people control over their lives. It doesn't deliver to people
Absolutely
working in a
true.
workplace, in a
Absolutely fucking
corporation,
true.
control over their work lives, for example.
Absolutely fucking true. You are stuck at work. If you're like a full-time person, 40 hours of your fucking 40 hours out of the week that you could be spending enjoying your life or doing something you enjoy is stuck at work, generating a profit for some dipshit who probably doesn't even know what the fuck you're doing half the time. You see shit like that all the time, by the way, with like what's it called, Undercover Boss, where you see the people you're generating a fucking income for don't even know what the fuck you're doing down here, and then they're like, oh, I feel so bad. Why don't I don't? This is what they have to go through, and then they forget about it like fucking 2 days later and just go back to normal.
Yeah.
But it's like, yeah, we don't get to do shit that we actually enjoy unless we have to earn it. Earn it meaning we generate enough profit for
Yeah.
some fucking idiot to
Yeah.
be able to
And
go on
generally there
vacation and
will
shit.
be. Yeah, and there will be jobs that most people won't like, but at the
The
same time, if you
overwhelming
had better.
majority of jobs just fucking suck ass. Nobody
Yeah,
wants to
but the
work like
problem is that
90% of the jobs
people
here.
just don't get proper compensation for the shitty jobs. Is pretty
Absolutely.
much. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mm. Can you also
And
talk about the overabundance of like useless administrators?
Oh yeah,
Because
for
it's the
sure.
reason why like
Healthcare
class
costs,
it's
right?
healthcare costs, college tuition as well. A lot of it goes towards like
S-
salaries for administration, and then it
So
gets trickled down to the professors. It's like
it's
it,
fucking
I
stupid.
don't,
There's so much wasted money that goes to these stupid, nonsensical, completely optional positions. Like, I'm not sure if you know this, but not only administrators are fucking optional, and the only reason they exist is because of capitalism, pretty much. But then you also have the CEO position of companies, completely optional. There are plenty of companies that operate without a CEO at the helm. It's a completely optional and bullshit fucking position that does not need to exist, period.
it doesn't deliver to consumers, people living in neighborhoods, control over the allocation of resources to public goods. It doesn't even deliver the stuff that you talked about at the beginning, but I don't want to spend a lot of time on the extremes. In other words, it doesn't deliver housing for everybody. It doesn't deliver health care. It doesn't deliver, but it could. Let's say it could. I want to go well beyond that.
Something I want to say,
Sure.
by the way, have you noticed the fucking quality between Steven's headphones and Michael Albert's headphones. Michael Albert
Mm.
has some fucking Gucci headphones, and Destiny's are all fucking crinkled
Yep.
up and used. I just wanted to point that out.
Sure.
if possible.
I never
Yeah.
had any headphones.
I kind of hesitantly agree, but I have to be careful because the way that you use some of these words, if I agree too much, then I've already agreed with everything you said. So I guess like to, or I'm going to agree with your final conclusions if I grant too much here. So when you talk about like, does capitalism yield like some level of control? I mean, it does. For instance, we can make choices about which consumer goods we want to buy, to some extent where we want to live, to some extent that, that we exercise some control with our wallets, right? Now, the type of control that we exert is probably not as great a degree as what you would like. I'm guessing you're going to say that. But I would be careful. Like, I wouldn't agree that capitalism gives us no control. I think by definition,
I didn't say it.
yeah.
Yeah, I
It
didn't
doesn't.
say it gives us.
It gives it gives like the overwhelming majority of people no control, at least over their work lives and stuff. You can say, oh, the customers decide, the prices and everything with the market forces and supply and demand, blah blah blah. But there's so much market manipulation that happens to manipulate prices to where we can't really necessarily determine how much of a say the consumer actually has in it when there's so much evidence of like market manipulation. I forget the
Yeah.
term of it, but there's cases of like Amazon, for example, literally burning hundreds of thousands of products to artificially inflate the price because that's what makes the most money. They toss a bunch of products out and then they generate more money by fucking um raising the price on the rest of the products which they didn't burn, which creates an artificial demand. There's shit that's rampant like that. So we don't really have a good idea of how much we, the consumers, actually determine prices. And even then, we should have a lot more say in the economy than just like, slightly determine how much fucking whatever you're gonna buy costs. It should be a lot more than that.
Mm-hmm.
No,
Sure.
call it influence. It certainly gives us some influence. It gives some people a whole lot of influence.
Yeah.
Right? Gives the people who own workplaces and who have fortunes on the consumer side and who
So
own
true.
workplaces on the producer side. It gives them a whole lot of control,
So
a
true.
whole lot of influence.
Yeah.
It gives doctors, lawyers, engineers, managers less, but a significant amount of influence. But then it gives people who are in rote jobs, in repetitive jobs, much less influence, virtually
True.
no influence over their work
True.
lives. In fact, if you think about it, I think even Stalin, right, as horrendous a political figure as most people in the United States can dream up to talk about, even
I mean,
Stalin
that
never
probably goes to Hitler rather than Stalin, but
dreamed of telling people when they could go to the bathroom. But owners of workplaces routinely establish norms about when it's okay and when it's not okay to go to the bathroom. So the amount of control that most working people have, not the managers, not the owners, certainly, not the accountants, not the engineers, but most repetitive working people in jobs that aren't empowering, the amount of control that they have is very nearly nil over their work lives. I think that's just, I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
that's-
I think I hesitantly agree with that. I don't know about.
XD.
I'm sure somewhere in the Soviet Union they probably had scheduled bathroom breaks somewhere. I imagine.
Indeed.
And
fine, that would just be terrible.
well, I guess it depends on the type of job you have, right?
Really? In other words, should it be the case that in the United States, the owner, or in the Soviet Union, which in my eyes is a despicable economy,
True.
or in the Soviet Union, a central planner or a manager in a firm, right, determines what the arrangement of work life is, whether or not you can go to the bathroom at certain times, how long the workday is, how you work with each other, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, these are things that I assume you would like to do away with if we could.
I guess possibly. I mean, I don't think there's a disagreement here, but I mean, like, I think we could
You
agree
can
that,
see
like,
a lot. Destiny's gonna kind of semi-concede to a lot of arguments Michael Albert fucking poses because it's like he's right. He's completely fucking right. There are so many flaws that he's accurately pointing out with capitalism, and Destiny doesn't have any retort. He's gonna say, I agree, but I gotta be careful because I don't want to agree too much." Like a little fucking beta boy he is.
Yep.
Oh my gosh, it's so funny.
That's
He
He's
believes
why
that
I think
conceding is a
you're
Sigma
innocent.
move.
There's been like several arguments thrown out
Sorry.
by Michael Albert in the first 10 minutes, and Destiny is basically conceded on every single one of them. It's fucking bad. This is fucking bad for Steven, man. Steven Bennell, Destiny, the fucking whatever.
He's the uwu. He's an uwu boy. He's like, uwu, I do
Oh
not.
boy.
It's not like I
He's like,
agree.
ooh
I don't
woo,
really agree, but I think I can agree on some parts of your argument.
ooh woo,
Woo.
Uwu.
ooh woo,
Woo.
ooh woo, ooh woo.
Let's say for instance we both agree that the TSA is necessary. You probably don't you don't want
The what?
everybody.
Sorry.
I'm sorry. The Transport and Security Administration in the United States, the people that do like security at airports. You probably don't want like all
Sure.
of them going on a bathroom break at the same time and letting anybody walk through.
Okay, sure.
But
But
yeah,
I mean,
like so, like
What?
yeah. So
In what scenario? Who the fuck? In what scenario is everybody gonna go to the fucking bathroom at once? I think it's kind of common sense that that's never gonna be something that fucking happens. Not everybody has bladders which sync up at the exact same point in time.
Wait,
Oh, we all have to go to the bathroom at the
wait,
same time.
wait.
What?
What if it's like a
What?
group of middle school girls? Like they all go to the bathroom at the same time, you know? I'm just
Bruh.
I'm joking. I'm just joking.
Middle schoolers don't
That
have
didn't land.
jobs.
Yeah, like what if they were all like overdeveloped like underdeveloped adults and they're just like, "Oh my god, we have to all go to the bathroom together. Come on." I'm just
Bruh.
Yeah.
this
Bruh.
ah. Sorry, that was a joke by the way. I wasn't actually trying to bring
It's
that up as a retort.
okay.
Bruh.
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 I mean, yeah. So I mean, insofar as like necessary stuff like that is what I mean by dictating bathroom breaks. I
Okay.
mean, in terms of like managers just being cruel or something is kind of silly. I wouldn't want that to happen, of course. But yeah, I don't. We probably don't have a major disagreement here. I think. But
Okay.
okay.
And now, what about equitable outcomes? In other words, the workforce produces a whole lot of stuff. The stuff gets distributed. It gets distributed because you get an income, and that gives you a share of the total product, right? So we get a share of the total product. What kind of share do you think? Forget about whether we can accomplish it for a moment. What kind of share do you think is really equitable? It is really fair.
This is where we're gonna probably diverge pretty hard. So I don't believe like in concepts of like fair when it comes to like an analysis of economic systems.
Bruh.
This is usually what I would
Bruh.
use like government policy to shore up. Like I can tell you what fair means like in a
Yeah.
capitalist sense, right? That the labor that you provide to somebody, it's paid what a market is willing to pay for it, which is kind of like circular. But
Bruh.
like that's how I would like see like, well, is something fair or not fair? And then you would try to find like
Right.
maybe market failures that inhibit like one side from being able to negotiate
Okay,
like a
but
fair wage or something. But yeah.
Oh
but
shit.
you're
We
assuming
should be striving to make pretty much everything as fair as possible, including economic outcomes. People should not be forced into like legitimately unfair situations like being born into poverty and being stuck in the cycle of poverty. People should not be born into that. We should be talking about what's fair and economic in terms of the economy as well, so we can fix problems like that. Because you're never going to have problems like that fixed under capitalism, no matter how hard you try. Poverty's always going to exist under capitalism. You'll even have some capitalists say that is a literal tool of capitalism. It's literally necessary, and they argue that's a good thing, depending on the capitalist you talk to, at least. But it's like,
Yeah.
the fact that those people even exist is fucking mind-boggling. This should not be a mechanism under capitalism.
It's
Fairness.
always.
What's up?
I think it's just people who just thinks like efficiency and logic override every other principle that they have.
They care
That
about
for some.
money
Yeah.
over
Yeah.
how we are treated as human beings. They treat the
Yeah.
workers like cogs in a machine, and if one fucking breaks, you toss it out and let it rot on the fucking street or whatever.
Mhm.
It's so stupid.
your goal. I mean, you're
If they
assuming
were allowed to make us work in cages, they probably would. Like
I mean, they're
we
literally
can't
already
fix it.
using children in fucking Nicaragua to be able. oh boy, am I gonna get canceled for that one? They're using children in, like, fucking Africa and shit to make fucking chocolate
Nicaragua.
for
Yeah.
for Nestle. Nestle literally uses child
Nestle.
labor to get fucking chocolate for their candy. You know those M&Ms you
Yeah.
might have bought like a week ago or whatever? That was made
Yeah.
by children. That was farmed
Yeah.
by fucking children. They would use cages. They would do anything possible to make it as cheap as possible to produce these goods to be able to sell at a fucking fucked up price,
Yeah.
including slavery, which we already see. We already see that.
From being able to negotiate like a fair wage or something, but yeah.
But you're assuming your goal. I mean, you're assuming the end. You're assuming that these institutions are the way things are.
Mhm.
And if I thought these institutions were the way things are, I might say something very similar,
Okay.
right? But I'm suggesting, can we at least entertain the possibility that maybe we could have a different set of institutions that have different outcomes? And if we could do that, right, what kind of outcomes would we want?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, we entertain ideas all day here. Yeah.
Okay, so what
all
kind
day,
of
yeah.
what kind of all right, let me suggest something.
Sure.
Okay? I don't think income should be a function of power. I don't think you should be able to have what you can take.
Okay.
Would you agree with that?
Well, it depends on what your alternative is going to be.
I like this fucking dynamic that Michael's doing, where he's listing out positions which are super fucking uncontroversial and asking Destiny, do you agree or disagree with that? I do like that a lot. Destiny's a lot fucking closer to socialism than he thinks, considering how little he's actually disagreed with Michael up until this point. He just seems like a capitalist because, based on everything I've seen at least from him, left bad. That basically seems to be why he doesn't want to be a socialist. He doesn't want to be grouped in with the online left or some shit. But it's like, you agree with a lot of the fucking principles of the left. He's literally listing out a lot of leftist principles, and you're like,
I don't have any major disagreements. Maybe on like one thing, but
I'm like, this is a fucking steamroll so far from Michael's end. But it's gonna get a lot more spicy. Don't worry. I watched some of the debate.
Spicy.
That kind of spicy.
Is what I was trying to say. Continue.
Okay, I don't want worse, obviously, than anything that I'm going to say.
Well, of course, anything you say you're going to feel is better, right?
You're very cautious.
I mean, like we both, for instance, agree that central planning in the Soviet Union did not turn out well, right? But they thought that was better than a market forces or whatever determining things. So,
well, we should be a little careful. I hated the Soviet system, okay, but actually not because central planning didn't work, although I think it didn't work. But I think it didn't work for different reasons, probably, than you think it didn't work. I think it didn't work because it was authoritarian. You think it didn't work because it didn't get the economic job done. Am I right about that?
Yeah, the calculation.
You think it didn't work because it didn't get the economic job done. Am I right about that?
Yeah, the calculation problem, basically.
Okay.
Although the authoritarianism probably played into a little bit, but yeah.
Okay, but neither one are real. But I don't want to debate that because I don't want to defend that system. But I would ask you to think about just this. When people think that the central planning in the Soviet Union didn't work, they compare the Soviet Union to the United States. But if you compare the Soviet Union to, say, I don't know, Brazil, which at the time of the Soviet Revolution was in comparable condition to the Soviet Union at that time, and then you look 59 years later, or 60 years later, or 70 years later, and you compare the two countries, Soviet Union is doing vastly better by the standards that you would describe. Worse than the U.S., but better than countries that were comparable at the time of the revolution. Now, it was more authoritarian.
Well, that might be
and
possible.
I would reject it on those grounds.
Well, that might be possible. I don't know if I would credit that to central planning. Right, it's impossible that the industrialization of a country with a very large population that had the natural resources to grow would have grown under almost any economic system.
That's why I compared it to Brazil.
Okay,
which is
I don't know
the same.
If Brazil is like Brazil is like a 1-to-1 comparison with the Soviet Union.
No, nothing would be 1-to-1, but it's a large country with ample resources, et cetera, et cetera. But let me ask you a slightly different question about central planning. General Motors is centrally planned.
Okay.
That is to say, most of the decisions inside General Motors or Boeing or any of these other huge corporations, they don't have internal markets, right? The divisions of General Motors don't distribute things among themselves via market system. They do it via central planning. Now, I don't like that.
Well,
so I
but when
don't
they
want
do
to get into defending it
yeah,
for
no,
a
that's
long
okay.
time.
When you say they do
But
I
it
am
worked.
kind of iffy on that point because, like, what is General Motors? Let me double check what that is, because pretty much every company's decisions are determined by market forces. Let's look up what that is. General
Mark,
Motors, American multinational automotive manufacturing company. Doesn't that technically operate on? I feel like maybe both are in the right here in terms of, like, it's centrally planned because it's like determined by like a board of people and shit rather than, the workers and whatever. But then the decisions based on for the central planning are based on market forces, right? You guys want to chime in here?
well, unicorn, you got anything to say?
Unicorn, are you there?
So like, all right,
You're
honest,
probably older than
there
me.
are a lot of
Answer.
people. Okay, yeah, I know. Ah, so I don't know, how old are you?
I'm 24.
Oh, shit, yeah. Uh,
You're a year older than. Wait, we probably are the same year, depending on when your birthday is.
September
September.
1998.
Oh, oh, okay. Then you are 2 years younger. No, wait, 1 year younger than me. Okay,
Shit,
fine.
I'm the youngest one here. But
No, no,
anyways.
no, no. 1 year older than me. I meant.
Oh shit, okay.
Anyway, okay,
But
fine.
yeah, I'm not sure about Michael's point here, to be completely, like, fair about, General Motors being centrally planned rather than, like, determined by market forces, because all companies under capitalism are determined by market forces. But let's see what you have to say.
when you say they do it via central planning,
Mhm.
central planning in response to what?
I'm not sure what you mean by in
Like,
response
how
to
do they
what.
determine how to centrally plan their system?
Yeah, well,
By market forces, right?
no, the external relations of General Motors are to the market,
Yeah.
but the internal dynamics of General Motors, right, are planned. And so for instance, the
Yeah, I'm not sure about that point, to be honest.
production
yeah,
of
kind
I
of.
of
don't entirely understand the point, to be honest.
It kind of gives me a bit of a feedback loop because, like, yeah, they're centrally planned intrinsically and with how they do things, but wouldn't they also be looking at the market forces that they're like
Yeah,
extrinsically affected by and then plan according to what's going on?
yeah,
Like,
that's how they
I
plan. They
said,
they planned their decisions based on what would make the most money, and they have to look at market forces to be able to see that. I feel like it's kind of like they're kind of both on a different page in terms of semantics. They might just have a different understanding of what they're talking about. I feel like he has a different understanding of, how it's planned compared to this guy and us. So that's why I feel like might be going on, but it's a weak point on his end, to be honest.
various components, right, and the distribution of those components and the timing and everything else internally is basically planned. There are no markets inside General Motors.
You don't think
Now,
there's an
I
accounting?
I see what he's saying, right? There's no markets inside General Motors. Like, there's nothing in General Motors that's determining, like, how do I put this?
Yeah.
I mean, pretty much every company is centrally planned in a way, because all of the decisions for the company are determined by either a CEO or a board of directors. So that could technically apply to all companies, I think. But the issue is, he seems a little bit too dense on what they're making the decisions for. What, like, they're making it for profit, and the way they determine that is by looking at the market forces. So I feel like he might just be misunderstanding it a bit, but at the same time, it does come across as weak, to be honest.
Department that doesn't keep
uh,
track of like the cost of
yeah,
goods.
there
that
is an
are
accounting department. That's called planning.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, these inputs and outputs are all going to ultimately be influenced by like the external markets that are driving these things. Like there
Yeah,
might be
and
some.
those
I wouldn't agree with calling this central planning. Like central planning, the
okay.
idea is that like your whole mode of production, like the inputs and outputs, aren't like based on market forces. I don't know
Can
if
you
finding.
have central planning in Brazil? Could you? You could, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
You could have it in Belgium too, right?
Sure.
Okay, so Belgium is a much smaller country than Brazil. Can you have it in a corporation that has a net input and output of stuff, right? That's bigger than Belgium's.
I guess you
I'm
could.
guessing here, but I think that General Motors and Boeing have economies. They are economies that are larger than Belgium.
Sure, I guess like
Okay.
because these
Yeah,
are like Belgium could
that
be
is
like its
true.
own
That is true. Those companies are larger in terms of their economic like size than fucking small countries. That is true.
internal like centrally
That's
planned thing,
major
but
flex.
corporations can't.
I mean, what?
Major flex. Like
Bro,
I just kind of imagine.
Disney has a fucking bigger economy than like 50% of the countries on this earth. Like, jeez Louise.
I'm so excited. Okay. Do you know that there is a county in Florida that's owned by Disney?
Yes, I know about that, and that's what Ron DeSantis is trying to get rid of them for, or something like that. Trying to get their power. He's trying to take power back in that county or some shit like that. I forget. I don't know much about the whole situation there, but I know
Yeah.
Disney is doing shit which is triggering Ron DeSantis, and it's really fucking funny. But I digress.
It's like
Economy.
capitalism eating its own tail almost.
Oh, for sure.
Economies that are larger than Belgium.
Sure, I guess like
So-
the because these are like Belgium could be like its own internal like centrally planned thing, but corporations can't really be their own internal centrally planned thing. Like they're funded by money, they need revenue, they need capital. Like they can't just do
So
their
does
own.
Belgium.
I
All
don't,
right, let's not.
Yeah, sure,
Let's
okay.
not go off on this
Okay.
because we could talk about it for a long time. It'd be interesting,
Sure.
right? But all I'm doing here when we have this discussion is I'm sort
He
of
does look nervous.
I'm saying
It's taking another pizza.
You can tell he's getting nervous.
all I'm doing here when we have this
Getting
discussion is
another
I'm sort of
pizza.
That's his
I'm going to
giveaway.
grab a potato chip and I ate it.
but
Whoever makes
all
this
I'm doing
pizza.
What?
I'm gonna grab a pizza. And I'm gonna eat it.
Original
Welcome, what is
content
this
here
pizza?
at the Pog Rock channel.
doing here when we have this discussion is I'm saying I don't want to agree with you that the problem with central planning was that it couldn't do any of its rather mundane economic functions. It could. The problem with it is that it was atrocious, that it was an ugly system, that it imposed
Big
authoritarian
gay.
relations in the economy,
Mhm.
that it meant that the workplace in the Soviet Union was very little different than the workplace in the United States.
Mhm.
It had the same corporate division of labor, right? In other words, about 20% of the workforce had all the empowering work, and 80% just basically obeyed.
Mhm.
And that was the way the workplace in the Soviet Union was organized. It's also the way
That's why they call it state capitalism and not real communism. And by they, I mean leftists.
workplaces in the United States are organized. So that much is very similar about the two systems, and that's what I don't like. I don't like the division of society
I'm just laughing by the fact that he was just chewing on his pizza. Anyway,
so that some people have tremendous power and
You
other
want to
people
know what I find weird? He keeps eating that pizza despite it probably being super fucking cold. He's eating cold pizza. Oh my! I can. I swear, I'd probably throw up if I ate cold pizza. Like I can't. I fucking
I
can't.
think at that point he just wants something to chew on.
He needs to chew on a big fucking cock. That's what he needs to chew on.
people basically follow out what those former folks decree will happen. I don't like that in the economy. And I'm saying I would agree with you if we can't fix that. Okay, then what we would have to do is have an economy which creates those problems, and we'd have to try and have government policies to ameliorate them.
Okay.
Right, to reduce the harm of them. I agree with you. But if we could change the economy so it didn't create those problems in the first place, and so instead it created a situation which, we'd like, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to agree with you. If you have an economy that can remedy all these problems without the need for external policy, it would be superior, of course.
All right. So now what we have to now the second part of the
All right.
What?
And I just like that. That's Albert's like response because he knows Destiny stands for like a long time now. So he's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, he's just kind of like hand waving it at this point because it's like Steve. It's pretty clear that Steven doesn't really know much of what the fuck is going on here at this point.
Yeah.
Like
Mm-hmm.
he had one solid moment with the General Motors thing, but other than that, he's been getting fucking steamrolled and he's just been conceding left and right. Ugh.
What did the chat even say? What is it saying? Can't
Chat's
even.
just being a fucking retard. Chat, never pay attention to a streamer's chat whenever a debate is happening because they're just blindly sucking the cock of whoever's streaming. I see it with Vosh. I see it
Yeah,
with Xander Hall. I see it with the
someone.
Surfs. I see it with fucking everybody, and it's so annoying. They're little fucking gremlin cocksuckers. That's what they are.
What's the spicy meatability?
Spicy meatball. Wait, that's French.
They're in the same continent. It counts. It counts.
No, I can't conflate both of them.
Oh, oui,
Anyway,
oui.
continue.
Remedy all the
Oh, oui, oui. A spicy meatball and a pizza pie. Oui.
No,
I get me a
Mamma
baguette with
mia.
my spaghetti.
Mamma mia is what I was
How did
supposed to
this
say.
fucking start? How are we going from debating
I'll say Mamma Mia
socialism
while
to
you spicy
fucking
meatball
pizza,
pie.
might, and meatballs?
Look, I blame the fact with this Nini eating pizza this whole time.
True. Okay, fair point. Fair point.
these problems without the need for
Anyway, continue.
external policy would be superior, of course.
All right. So now what we have to now the second part of the well let's we didn't finish with the income thing
What income
or
thing?
the
Oh,
democracy
for
thing.
the
I have to admit
equitable?
I was a little surprised and I was thinking about it while talking about other things
Mhm.
by your saying that you didn't care about democracy that much. I'm similar in a way.
Okay.
I care about something called self-management.
Amen, brother.
And in some situations, democracy is the best approximation of that.
Okay.
But suppose you have a thermostat on the wall in your room right there.
Mhm.
Okay? We're not going to vote, each of us having an equal vote on whether or not you turn that thermostat up or down.
Okay.
Why not?
Because it's my thermostat, proximity, local, yeah.
It's going to affect you.
Yeah.
Right? That's the real issue. That it's going to. So, and let's suppose that, I don't know if you're in a house, but let's make believe you're in a house and there are other people in the house. And if you change that thermostat, it's going to affect those other people.
I don't know why.
So they-
I really don't know why, but whenever I listen to Michael Albert talk, it makes me smile and I want to laugh. I don't know what it is. Like, I don't know if it's just the tone of his voice or what, but I fucking like it. Makes me giggle.
Up or down.
Okay.
Why not?
Because it's my thermostat.
Issue that it's going to. So, and let's suppose that, I don't know if you're in a house, but let's make believe you're in a house and there are other people in the house. And if you change that thermostat, it's going to affect those other people. So they should have some say in it too, right?
Sure.
Okay.
Based.
That's what I care about. I care about having an arrangement of institutions, whether we're talking about the political institutions or economic,
Mhm.
in which people who are affected by decisions have a say in them. And indeed,
agree.
to the extent possible, you can't do it perfectly, but to the extent possible, they should sort of have a proportionate say.
I agree.
That's-
This is way better than the concept of like majority rule. The concept, this idea of voting and your vote counts in proportion to how much it affects you. That is far better than what some socialists do with like majority rule, because there's like legitimate issues with with that concept. I think it's called like direct democracy, and then you have the majority rule. There's some fucking serious issues with that, and I used to believe that, and I just didn't have counters for it. I just fucking believed that shit blindly. But then I hear this, and it's like, that makes a lot more sense, you know? It makes a lot more sense to give someone's vote more power based on how much the decision affects them. Like, I can't
Mhm.
see a logical counter argument to that. Like, it makes sense. It sounds reasonable. Like, I wonder what Destiny's gonna say, or if he's just gonna go like,
I agree. Actually, I agree, but not entirely because I gotta be careful because I'm a capitalist.
That's why
Oh
you
my
get.
god.
It's like you.
Wait.
How-
I'm a capitalist, so I can't agree entirely. I have to find some sort of excuse.
Complete
that.
say over that thermostat in your room compared to me, and a lot of say compared to other people in the house.
Okay.
So and I think we all agree with that. It's so simple-minded and it's so, but what we don't do is think about whether or not an institution can deliver it.
Okay.
If it could, that would be good, right?
Theoretically, yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right, so back to distribution of stuff.
Distribution of stuff. That makes me laugh so much.
We must see
The
the
stuff of
distribution of stuff.
the stuff of production. Am I right, fellow comrades? He has to dumb it down for him because he can see that he's fucking illiterate.
All right, let me propose something for you, and you tell me what you don't like about it, if there is something you don't like about it.
Okay.
I don't think people should get stuff because they can take it, because they have bargaining power,
True.
because they have more power than others, and they can sort of take more. I don't like. Some people do like that. Al Capone, the famous crook, the famous.
Yeah, I've heard of him.
Okay, Al Capone was asked whether or not he liked the United States once in an interview.
Okay.
And he said, yes, I love the United States. It's fantastic. The interviewer said, why? And he said, well, you get to keep what you can take. It's basically a thug's formulation of what distribution should be.
That is
You have more
true.
power, you take more. I
He's
don't
so
believe
right.
that. I also don't believe that people should get for property.
People should
Right.
get for property.
Get income for property. In other
Oh.
words,
What was that?
I'm gonna add in, I'd much rather mess with the fucking Bloods or Crips or even MS-13 than the fucking IRS. Like, I feel like the IRS would ruin my fucking life.
The fucking Crips and the Bloods or whoever the fuck will just shoot you in the knees. The IRS will permanently cripple you and ruin your fucking credit score. You
I'll
know?
bust your
I'd
kneecaps.
rather have my kneecaps busted than my fucking credit score ruined. You know what I'm saying? Because then I can put up a fight if they try to bust my kneecaps. I can't put up a
Okay.
fight against the fucking IRS.
I mean, you can fight the IRS, but it's very likely you won't win.
Mhm.
Meanwhile, all you have to do is shoot the Crips. It's not that difficult compared to fighting the IRS, you know? Just gotta
Mhm.
own a gun and have good skills. Get good,
If
scrub.
you get
Get
in a
good.
fight with a gang, it's almost like like
Be
a
John
wave.
Wick.
Like swarms of other gangsters are gonna come and like shoot you because you killed their brothers or whatever, and then suddenly like the actual what's it called, boss of the gang would just sense like, okay, this motherfucker is targeted. We gotta take his ass down, and then you need to join another gang in order to be protected.
Yup. That's how it works in prison,
Mhm.
at least. I remember hearing that in prison, the only way you can get protected is by submitting to another gang or some shit like that. Otherwise, you're just gonna get ass fucked and nobody will do anything.
I don't believe that. I also don't believe that people should get for property.
People should
Right.
get for property.
Get income for property. In other
Oh,
words,
You want to
all right?
decommodify
In
housing?
other words,
Yeah.
yeah. So, in other words, if you own Microsoft, you have a piece of paper in your pocket which says that you own Microsoft, then you get, more income than the entire population of Guatemala, say. Or, 4 or 5 of those people get more income than 50% of the population of the United States. And why? Because they have a piece of paper in their pocket.
Literally!
That's literally the
He's
reason.
so
That's the
fucking
only thing.
true! These people
Mhm.
get paid millions of billions of dollars, these fucking one percenters. They get paid so fucking much, all because they own a social construction of a company. That's literally all they do. They just sit on their ass and they AFK farm real life. It's so fucking stupid. He's completely right.
AFK farm.
And then let me
Yep.
guess. Let me guess what Destiny's gonna say. Destiny's gonna say, I agree with you. Okay. And it's like, what?
Oh my god.
This isn't a fucking debate. He's asking a couple clarifying questions, but other than that, he's just conceding like 90% of the time.
Yep.
It's like, how is Destiny not a socialist at this point if he's just
getting
gonna agree
fed
with
by
everything?
Albert, essentially.
He's being ass fucked. Destiny's being ass fucked by Albert.
Mm.
This old man's fucking plowing his tight little boy buns.
that's required, that deed to property. So maybe it's necessary, right? We're not talking about that. Maybe there's no way around it. But if there is a way around that, I'd rather not have people who own property and then get income based upon what that property generates in the economy and therefore own fortunes. All right, so the last one, this is the controversial one, perhaps.
Oh, I remember this one. We'll talk about it when we get there.
I don't believe that people should get income by virtue of having been born with certain talents.
I agree with that
or
aspect.
skills or capacities.
Definitely.
So I don't think that because you're born with very fast, very strong, very quick, very musical, whatever it might be, whatever that talent might be, because you're born blessed with that talent, we should pile on top of that money. We should pile on top of that income, right? You didn't do anything to, just like you didn't do anything to be born the kid of a rich parent who inherits
Donald Trump
property. You didn't do anything to be born with these talents.
Elon Musk.
Right? And it's a great blessing. But there's no particular reason why you should be given a great amount of wealth on top of it, I don't think. So for me, what it comes down to is this. You should get income for how hard you work, for how long you work, and for the onerousness of the conditions under which you work, as long as you're doing socially valuable labor.
I partially disagree with that, and you're going to see why with the example he's going to come up with, and then we can discuss a little bit after that about why we disagree or agree or whatever.
Right? You have to be producing something.
I disagree with the
premise.
I'd say I disagree with the take that he said that people shouldn't be paid if they're born with certain talents, because what if they were talented at yeah, they may be talented is one thing. Because they're not gonna make any money from it, they can't do this thing that they're talented in. So they have to take a job that they fucking suck at, or a dead end job, and their potential.
No, he's saying no. I mean, you can use that potential, but you shouldn't be paid more just because you were born with a quality that you didn't work for. You didn't let's say who's someone who was born with a really good fucking. Let's take it. I can't think of anybody off the top of my head who was born with some sort of intrinsic trait they didn't work for. Michael Phelps or something, I guess, right? He has those little lactoid. I don't know what they're called. I call them lactoid somethings under his arms, which give him the ability to swim faster, right? He's the fast swimmer. Or Usain Bolt. Let's use Usain Bolt, for example. He has the genetic gift of running faster because of the way his hips are shaped or some shit, right? He shouldn't be paid more money because he can run faster. Because he's better than everybody else. That's what he's basically saying. Because Usain didn't work for that. He was just born that way. You shouldn't be paid for something that you were born as. You should be able to reach your maximum potential, but you shouldn't. Yeah.
Here's the thing. In the next sentence, he says that you should be paid by how hard you work and how much.
Yeah, that's where I disagree. I partially disagree with that, and it's mainly because of the example he brings up, where I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna have to disagree with that, Chief. Well, let's listen more, and then we can talk about the example he brings up.
Something that's valued, and then you get income for how long, how hard, and how onerous the conditions are, and that's it.
So how does that separate from the talent? If someone's naturally faster, then they might be able to do work faster. If they're born smarter, they'll be able to get more work done. So could you?
But I didn't say.
Could you suss that out?
Yep. Okay. Yes. I didn't say that it was the amount of work that they do, right, or the amount of product. So you're right. If we say that we're going to give you two guys go out in the agricultural field, one is much bigger and stronger and one is smaller, and they they do whatever it is that they do for 8 hours, and the big strong person has a huge pile of stuff and the other person has a little, a fourth as big. Okay, so you're right. So that intrinsic inherited genetic endowment makes a difference. But I didn't say we reward or we remunerate or we give income for the amount of product. I said we give it for how hard you work, how long you work, and the onerousness of the conditions under which you work. That's not the same thing, right? If you happen to have better tools, you'll produce more, but you don't get rewarded for how much you produce.
So
You
if a
get
small
rewarded.
guy goes out into a field and he gives it 120%, and a big guy goes out gives it 100%, big guy brings back twice as much as a small guy, assuming you could measure the effort of their work, you would pay the
Right.
small guy more because he's working harder under similar conditions.
Exactly.
That's where I disagree. I do think production has to play some role in determining how much somebody gets paid, because it's like if you have somebody who's working their ass off but like they're genetically fucked, they're not producing that much. I Not even I see a reason to be able to give them more money over the guy who produces more product or more service or whatever. So I do disagree with him on that point. Like I see where he's coming from and I completely understand his perspective, but I don't agree with him. I would say I agree with like 90% of what he said, but I don't disagree with that 10% where it's like product how much you produce means absolutely nothing and you shouldn't be paid at all based on that. I do think that has to be a factor in how you get paid. What do you guys think? Guys?
That's another. I do like the. Okay, Emily, are you gonna go first or should I? All right. So there is like some merit to what there is merit to what you said, because obviously, how the fuck are you gonna measure how hard someone works?
I would say
Like, are you
there's
gonna like
different
attach a rate monitor to them, and
there's
you're gonna be like,
different
oh, this
ways.
guy.
There's different ways to measure that in my opinion, but I do think the most effective one is by asking your coworkers basically, because coworkers are watching each other constantly. You can pretty easily determine how hard someone is working just based off of watching them work. Like, and there's also ways like, for example, I work in a let's say you work in a grocery store or something, right? And I worked in a grocery store, so I know how some measurements of how hard you work are measured. And I know about you. Do you know about curbside in grocery stores? How
Yeah,
those
I
work?
do. Curbside pickup.
So, yeah. So the way you measure how hard somebody works in that system, at least, is by how, in terms of the people who shop, you determine how hard they work by how fast they're able to shop. Like in the case of curbside, it's like it's called units per hour. That's how many items you can grab per hour to bring back. Unfortunately, I'm shit at it, and in my case, I'm shit at it because I really don't fucking like working, and I just gave up on it, to be honest. I just go there to get paid and go
Mm.
home. I probably shouldn't be fucking saying that in case one of my coworkers watches this, but um, I used to be really good the the curbside aspect though. When you bring stuff out, um, that's determined based on two things: the amount of time it takes, like for you to do all that, and then
Mm,
also how many orders you can do in that amount of time. That's how you measure effort in that case. And
mm,
there's other ways you could do it too. Like I said, watching your coworkers work, and then you could do like an anonymous survey every week, and you can ask the coworkers, how is this person doing the work? How would you rate this person doing the work? And then gather what everybody says and then average it out, kind of thing, right? That's another way you can measure it.
Mm.
So
So there's two. That's two
there,
ways. One of them just being an example for a certain department, though.
there is a flaw to that to relying on coworkers,
Mm.
because there are a lot of times where coworkers were either rather, like very socially manipulative, or is just trying to get to the top of the company. Like they can just easily tell their friends, like, "Hey, I don't like this guy. Like, let's vote him out. Let's make sure he doesn't get paid more." Like, or there's like managers who would actually do that shit too. Like, it's
Well, yeah, but
insidious sometimes.
there's not really much incentive to do it under that kind of system, in my opinion, because what like first off, there's not really much you get out of it, and second of all, there's multiple coworkers, so it's like you can have a department full of people, and there's no way you're gonna be able to like fucking socially manipulate every single one into giving you good or bad things. Plus, who wouldn't want to vote out a shitty coworker? Like if your coworker's being an asshole all the time, he should be kicked out. He should be fucking fired, and so he can learn his lesson for the next job. I don't
So
see
what if
why
this
that's a bad thing.
coworker? what would happen if the coworker just happens to be very highly functioning and but is also in the autism spectrum, so they're not good at socializing. Everyone thinks it's freaking weird and kind of odd, so it's just like, I
Well,
don't
if you
know, man.
tell
I don't like
people
this
that you're
guy.
autistic, they'll be a lot more understanding. Like I do know there's this guy at my work who's very likely on the spectrum, and I of course didn't point that out in front of his. Oh my gosh, I got a commenter. Hi Bisky. But anyways, shit, I think I lost track. But no, actually, there's this guy at work who I do believe is genuinely autistic, and I say that based off my own experience of being autistic. He seems very what's it called? Very socially, not socially inept. He functions. Oh, it's going good, Bisky. I'm explaining
I
something
will
right
say
now.
this
So
though. I will say this though. Autistic people
they're
aren't
a special breed,
fit.
and I say
Yeah,
that as an
autistic
Aspie.
people aren't fit for capitalism. To be
Oh,
honest.
for
Yep.
sure, without a doubt. Especially if you're low functioning, you're fucked. But if you're high functioning, like me, and you can blend in pretty
Mm,
well, then you're gonna be fine. But if you don't get
mm,
the help to be able to be high functioning, because there's some people who have the ability to be high functioning but they just don't get the help, like this guy at work who now he's because I assume he didn't get help, so now he's unable to read body language. He sounds very like cocky and arrogant, and he thinks he's probably cool for that. He probably saw it off some sort of TV show and wanted to mimic that character's fucking behavior, and now he comes across as a cocky arrogant asshole for it.
mm.
And that's because he's like autistic, right? And in those kinds of cases, I would say it's best to vote them out, and then not not just vote them out and just kick them out, but when you do vote them out and say they're shit, when the boss tells the employee that they're kicked out, I do believe they should be able to elaborate on the reason why. So not only do they, get out, but they also do learn a lesson for the next time that they get a job. They'll be able to adjust their behavior properly. Maybe they'll be able to get some sort of help for being able to learn social cues and stuff. But if you're being an asshole, I don't think being autistic is a good excuse for that, especially if you're under a system where you're able to get that help, like participatory economics, since healthcare will be able to be provided to you for free, basically.
But this
Mm.
is kind of is it this is kind of almost like punishing someone for
One second.
their autistic symptoms.
Bisky said something. Our favorite commenter
Yeah,
and only
I would
commenter.
agree with that only
What
because
were you
like I
saying?
believe that we should like the workplace should have to some extent have some accommodations for
Oh
their
yeah, for
autistic
sure.
workers,
Oh yeah, for
you know.
sure. Right now, at least, for sure. But under participatory economics, I would say it should be a lot less lenient because unlike capitalism, you'll have the resources to be able to fix yourself under
Mm,
participatory economics. Under right now, under capitalism, it is a lot harder for these people to get help. So I totally agree that we should be making accommodations right now. But as
mm,
someone who's on the spectrum and who has dealt with this stuff before, I do think, like I said, I don't want to keep repeating myself, but yeah, participatory economics is a whole other situation because you have the resources available to not have to make those accommodations. Or if you're just like completely low functioning and you have no hope, I do believe you should make accommodations in those cases. But in the cases where it's possible to not make accommodations, yeah, just treat them like any other person, I would say. And as for Bisky, well, no offense, but Elon Musk has Asperger's. He says he has Asperger's. I am not surprised by that at all. He's very socially inept. Although he's doing good when it comes to the business world, what about relationships and stuff? I swear people never think about how Elon struggles with social situations. The dude is so fucking socially inept. I swear. He's literally
mm,
a Reddit poster that's he's a fucking Reddit user that's in charge of one of the biggest fucking social media companies in the on the planet. Like
mm-hmm.
the dude obviously has Asperger's. Yeah, but I feel bad.
Yeah.
You shouldn't feel bad. He's also a fucking sociopath and a guy who constantly censors people for not liking them and stuff. But were you guys gonna say anything
Yeah.
else?
Oh my god, Elon was freaking petty. But he, I would say that it would kind of be a little bit easier. Like at least like have them talk to a manager first or something
Oh
like
yeah, for
that.
sure.
Like it
Do,
could just
don't
be that
just
this is the only job that they have that's nearby.
yeah, I'm not saying that you should like fire them on the spot or anything like that. Of course, give them a talking to, give them a couple warnings like we do now. Maybe talk to them about the behavior. But if they don't straighten up and they don't, seek out the healthcare they need to be able to improve their social skills, I would say it's fair game at that point. They
Yeah,
need to
but
be taught some sort of
yeah,
lesson.
but to be fair, to getting help takes time. To be able
Oh
to be
yeah, for
high
sure.
functioning takes time. So
Oh yeah,
I
for
would say
sure.
like it is easier in participatory economics because like their basic needs are met. Therefore, that he doesn't need to always be working, but at the same time, you know.
Yeah, of course. I don't like I said, don't shoot them down on the spot. Give them a chance to breathe and stuff like that. Make it apparent to the coworkers, hey, this guy is on the spectrum. He's still learning, and then give him a chance. But if it's like 2 years or something like that, and this person is still an asshole, even though you've made it abundantly clear that they're being an asshole and you don't like the way they're behaving, it should be free fucking game at that point. Autism isn't an excuse to be a cocky, arrogant asshole, especially when
True.
you've been informed that that behavior is unacceptable.
True. Hmm.
Very
Like,
well.
especially when you
Mm.
have full knowledge of it. That's when,
Mhm.
like, all bets are off. Because if you acknowledge, okay, yeah, these people don't like my behavior, but I'm gonna continue doing it anyways, it's like, fuck
Yeah.
you. You're just a bad
Yeah.
person. It's not your autism. It's that you're just a shitty person.
Yeah.
True,
I'm
true. There
Can
are.
someone be a sociopath and have Asperger's? Probably. Those are two different.
And there are psychopathic people who happen to be good people. Clinically
Oh yeah,
psychopathic, actually.
clinically psychopathic, but they have good morals in the sense of, I've actually seen. I've actually seen interviews with sociopaths and psychopaths who are morally good, and they basically use like the like actual like literal logic to its literal extent. Like, why would I be mean when it fucking lands me in prison and basically cuts
Yeah.
off all my social connections and stuff like that. There's no logical
Yeah.
reason to be an
That's
asshole or
funny,
a killer or a rapist, whatever. They acknowledge that, and
Yeah.
that's why they behave well.
Yeah, because it's funny because like there's this story that I read it story about like this one parent who is clinically psychopathic and they admit that they don't love their kids but they actually did their best to be a good parent. Like even though they don't feel the feeling of love,
Yeah, yeah,
they
yeah.
still did their responsibilities as a parent,
Yeah, because
kind
it
of,
makes
you know?
logical sense to be able to do that. Like, what good
Yeah.
comes from mistreating your child and
Yeah.
raising them to be a fucking idiot or whatever? They see there's no logic in doing that, so they do the logical thing and treat them good and raise them properly. That's how sociopaths who actually function well work. And as for Bisky, we have a guy at work who I believe is on the spectrum, and I was very nice to him in the beginning. But then I found out that he liked kids, and I seriously hate him now. I just can't. Maybe Elon is a nice sociopath. Elon's not a nice sociopath. He's a fucking asshole, and I if I said what I think should be done to him, I'd probably be suspended on the spot. Let's just put it that way. Um, you guys have anything else to say, or do you want to get back to the debate?
Um. hmm.
Oh, we
I
should
think.
this should have been a fucking
Like,
segment. This should be a segment all on its own, just us debating about whether autistic people should have accommodations under parecon or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That's a segment all on its own. I might actually upload that. But do you guys have anything else to say?
well, the only thing I have to say is that there are certain behaviors, like say, like looking away, just saying short sentences and just going back to what you're doing.
Yeah,
Things like
I'm like that.
speaking in a monotonous voice. Like there are things that can be easily mistaken as being rude, but
Yeah,
I mean, I
I've been
get
like that.
it. I
I
get what you're
don't
saying though.
I don't think behaviors like that are a reason to fire somebody. If you're just speaking in short sentences or not looking somebody in the eyes when you speak, that's not a reason to fire somebody, obviously. That's a clear sign of somebody just being on the spectrum. I'm talking about when somebody's like being cocky, arrogant, talking back to their boss constantly. Whereas, like, okay, you kind of got to draw the line at some point. You can't just blame autism for every bad behavior where somebody's being an asshole. And I mean like an actual asshole, not just looking away when you're talking to somebody, because that's something I do a lot, and pretty much everybody acknowledges that I'm a pretty decent guy, and I'm not trying to toot my own horn there. That's just how it is where I work, at least. I yeah, and let's see. Bisky says I just low key feel bad for Elon. Uh, maybe he's trying really hard to fit and be cool, but he's failing, and everyone thinks he's weird. I have to disagree with that hardcore.
Like,
He's
that's
trying to
true.
be fucking cool to appeal to a bunch of sociopathic assholes who want to kill me for being progressive. They want to kill everybody in this voice call. He's trying to appeal to people who want me dead, who want my two friends here dead, who want my other friends dead for being trans. No, 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 no. I'm sorry. He deserves a lot that is bad. Let's just put it that way.
There's a lot of no stuff.
Yeah, he deserves a lot of no stuff. Maybe some industrial revolution treatment of the Burgoyes or whatever.
Okay.
Now, set aside for a minute, because this is the only way to think about this a step at a time. Does it work? Would it be a disaster? And just tell me, do you think it's fair? Do you think it would be equitable?
I'm very uncomfortable with using the word fair for economic.
When it comes to the example that they laid out, at least that's equity to a point where I have to kind of draw the line. I do believe in equity, and I do believe equity is a good thing, but that's just such a hard line example, which I do see going wrong to some extent. It would be a lot more optimal and a lot more pragmatic to also reward somebody based on, how much they produce, because how much they produce can be a sign of effort. That could be a sign of how much effort they're putting in. That's a measurement. So it's like you're basically eliminating a pretty decent mechanism to calculate how much effort somebody's putting into their work.
Economics, if for no other reason, because are you familiar with the concept of determinism?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm a hardline determinist. So, like when you talk about like biological advantages, like I mean, I would take that even further, and I would say literally any advantage you have in life is completely unearned, and even the effort you put into work is predetermined. That's not really relevant to this, but I guess like I'm not comfortable like ascribing fairness to like what people are paid or not paid. I'm just more concerned with like the final outcome that people are being taken care of as best as we can in society. So, yeah,
Well,
yeah.
okay, so would you say that we're taking care?
Sorry, there's a person talking in chat I want to respond to, since I don't want to ignore them and shit. Yeah, that is bad. I am so confused about his trans tweet. He's a fucking transphobe. Let's just put it that way. I have a theory. I think he's lashing out because his daughter, who is trans, left him and said she didn't want to be associated with him anymore. Probably. He's a very petty guy, so that's probably the reason why he's going fucking radical. Maybe he's upset that she disowned him and is taking his own personal problems on the whole community, not excusing it all, but I feel like that's where it came. Yeah, usually like bigots have some sort of personal experience which completely alter their view on reality. There's actually a really good movie about that. I forget what it's called, but it's basically about a regular guy who had a really bad run-in with a black guy, and then he became a white supremacist. It was like a black and white movie from a while ago. I don't know what it's called, but that's a thing that actually happens in real life.
Care of
And it kind of happened to me back when I first started politics.
people as best as we can, right?
Mm-hmm.
If when they work, right, they get their income for how much they can take, probably not.
Sure, not necessarily.
Okay, or for the property that they have, probably not. Now, this last one, maybe you would say. You might. I don't know why you would say it, but okay. Michael Jordan earns, or let's say LeBron James. I'm older. LeBron James earns. I don't even know what his salary is, but let's say it's $20 million a year. Okay. Is his product worth more or less than $20 million? Do you think?
Well, that word "worth" that really depends on. So in my world, in my circle,
in our world right now.
Yeah, of course. If somebody's willing to pay for something, then it's worth whatever someone's
willing
to pay for.
Come the fuck on! The guy plays basketball. There's no way he. Let's actually see his salary. Four. No way. No fucking way. You can't be serious. I'm gonna fucking cry. 44 million. They said 20 million. They said 20 million. It's 24. He should not be paid that fucking much. All he does is play basketball. You cannot be serious. That is retarded. Oh my gosh. Um, Bisky, but could it be how people were raised? Yeah, that too. Minus, I mean, she grew up in that type of household. I'm not saying everybody's like this, but you internalize. Yeah, that is also true. There's multiple ways you can become like that, but oh my gosh, LeBron James, you're not worth $44 million. I'm sorry, dude.
Okay, but wait a minute.
Yeah.
No, that's not clear. LeBron's product is what? Him playing basketball.
Sure, the entertainment he provides. Yeah, him playing basketball. Yeah.
Okay. So, and the owner pays him, let's say, $20 million a year.
Okay.
Or was the product, right, worth $20 million, more or less?
I mean, I think I see where you're leading me. If we're going to exploitation of labor, obviously his labor was worth more if somebody.
I don't believe in most of those terms.
Okay, well in that case, yeah. I mean, I'd say that literally by definition, if you have the beautifulest, bestest house made of pure gold, blah 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 blah, if people are only willing to pay you $1 for it, it's worth $1. And in a capitalist, in a market economy, things are worth.
How much were people willing to pay for to see LeBron's play?
Well, in this theoretical example, it's 20 million by the owner of the team or whatever. What?
Hold on a minute.
Okay.
They weren't the only ones paying. They were paying LeBron.
Okay.
But the audience, right, all over the world is paying to see LeBron play.
Okay.
So the worth of his product is a lot more than $20 million.
Sorry.
I disagree.
I'm gonna answer Bisky one more time, and then we're gonna have to primarily focus on the debate because I'm gonna eventually make a segment out of this, and I don't want to focus too much on cutting up. It's okay that I don't like Elon as a person, but I have a crush on him, or is that wrong? You can have a crush on him if you want. You there are people in love with a lot of fucked up people. You can do your own thing, honestly. But we're gonna try to focus on this now. So yeah.
I mean, we're going to like.
There's no economist in the world who would disagree with this, so I wonder why you disagree.
Well, I'm pretty sure every economist in the world would disagree with this. So like the worth of, like it depends exactly on what you're talking about. Like that problem, that worth word can mean like a lot of things. Like how much is a cheeseburger worth? Well, I don't know. Is it just the products and goods that go into it? Is it the actual labor time that goes into creating it?
What do you guys think? Is it how much do you think a cheeseburger should cost, and what do you think should determine that? I think under the current system at least, the thing that should determine how much it is how much the products are that went into it. Like let's say actually Five Guys is a pretty good example of this. Their burgers are fucking expensive, and the reason why they're expensive is because they use higher quality ingredients compared to other establishments. Their fucking burgers are like $10 because they're using actual decent meat, high quality meat that probably costs like $5. The buns are probably like what, $3 maybe. So I do believe that's an example of prices being determined based on the ingredients going into it, I guess you could say, or the products going into making it, and then they have to accommodate for that in order to make a profit off of it, which I doubt is that much considering how expensive those things are to make. But what do you guys think? You there?
Yeah, I'm there. I was thinking about um the first thing I thought was how tasty it is, but I mean, you kind of explained it already. It's because they taste better because they're using higher quality ingredients. So,
Yeah. I'm gonna go pee real quick, so you guys can mingle. Just don't say like the N word or whatever while I'm gone, please. I'll be right back. Talk about
Okay.
how stuff is produced, how much a cheeseburger should cost. I'll be back
Okay.
in like 2 minutes.
All right. All right. So a cheeseburger should cost nothing. I'm just kidding.
yo, in an ideal world, food doesn't cost anything.
Exactly. Exactly though. That should be the.
Yeah.
I mean, like, what about truffles? Like, truffles suck. To be fair, like they don't really give that much sustenance. But like, if someone were to want to eat truffles, like, how do we distribute truffles?
Um, that's a really good question because
Hmm.
you kind of, I mean, truffles are supposed to be like a special kind of dessert, you know? And
Yeah.
usually you would discover them like, say, a candy heart box,
Yeah.
and you will eat all of them,
Yeah.
literally all of them. But um, it could be distributed like how like food is distributed in a pantry.
Hmm.
Um, Here we have pantries
First
for
come, first
people
serve.
who something like that. There are people there who kind of like, you know,
Yeah.
like account for the resources, just make sure that no one like takes a handful of like
Yeah.
freaking candy or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's yeah, I mean it's kind of like that. I mean that's how like most food items are distributed anyway.
What are we
Like
talk? Are
first
we
Yeah.
come first
having
serve.
a
You run out.
productive discussion here? I'm gonna be watching it
We
back when I edit down the video. So
we are.
is it okay? Cool. What's being said?
Something we are talking about food distribution.
Amen, sisters, or they them sirs.
It's fine.
You're fine with me
Yeah.
calling you she her?
I do prefer they them, but like when it comes to like gendered words, I'm fine if you call me sister.
Okay, sister,
Yeah,
sister.
only for the convenience sake, you know.
I'll call you the they
And this
themsters. I'll call you the
they
themsters.
thems.
I'll call you both
We
the
will
themsters.
workshop on. We'll workshop on it, Pop.
That's your new nickname for whenever you come on the channel. You're the
If any,
themster.
you know what? If anything, brother feels more appropriate for me.
Got it,
But
brother.
anyway, yeah, exactly.
Brother.
Anything but sister,
Brah.
Oh yeah, yeah,
bruh. Yeah, bruh.
my
I, I
dude.
can,
The
I can do, I
brusters.
can deal with that.
Bruh.
Yeah,
Stir. Okay,
bruh.
but anyways, what were you guys saying?
Food distribution. Basically, I was saying like for luxury or like rare goods, how can that be distributed? Specifically, if they were food. Say like if it was like in my example, a truffle is
Amen.
basically yeah. Because like, what if it's high demand in a sense? How do we distribute that? Of course, like when it comes to like food, there will be food that's more abundant, and they that thus distributing that would be probably no problem for like
Yeah,
the greater population.
rarity should also play a role in the price because like
Yeah,
take vanilla for example. Vanilla, I think they're like beans or something, right? Those things
yeah,
are only grown in Madagascar. I found this out from a game
yeah,
theory video or a food theory video.
yeah,
Those things are fucking hyper rare, which is why they
yeah,
cost a lot, especially in like I've seen those things. One little string bean of those things costs like $3, and that's because they're
yeah,
super fucking rare. Like,
yeah,
so rarity should also play a factor into the role. Both cost and rarity are two factors that should be taken into account. How do you do that
yeah.
exactly? I don't fucking know because I'm not an economist. I'm only 24. But those are two things that should definitely be taken into account.
Yeah, of course.
Anything else, or are we good to watch the video still?
We're good. I mean, I think we're good. Are we good, Uni?
Yeah, we're good.
The Yoonster. I'm everybody that comes on my channel. I'm just gonna call them whatever and then stir at the end.
Sure.
The Amnity
Bobster.
Stir.
Here.
The rock,
Pogster.
the Pogster, yes. The Pog Rockster.
Albertster.
The Michael Stir, the Albert Stir, the Destiny Stir, Steven
Destiny
Stir.
doesn't disturb a stir.
Destiny disturbs. Disturbs.
Disturbs.
I am so fucking tired, dude.
Destiny deserves to be an NPC in a Destiny game, just for the namesake. Like the video game Destiny. Yeah,
Yeah,
he's just like one of those
put
little.
him, have him be like a boss from the Fallen or some shit, and then make him the weakest shit ever.
Like, is it what somebody's willing to pay for it?
Ah,
Like,
well,
yeah. So
but you want that last one, right?
Yeah, that's what I aim for. That's what I say the
Okay.
patty's worth. But
So
but
you're
you could
saying-
argue that like a hamburger is worth 50 cents for the patty. Somebody else might
Okay,
argue, well, it's worth 50 cents plus the 50 cents to make it.
Forget
Somebody might
that.
say, well, yeah,
I'm willing to do it your way.
Okay, sure.
I'm willing to do it your way. We don't have to
Exactly.
argue about it.
Okay.
Okay. You said
Mhm.
the thing that you want your eye on,
Yeah.
and I want my eye on it too,
Mhm.
is how much do people value it? It's not there's not some abstract number that's on a wall someplace, right?
Okay.
It's how much do people value it, and at different periods of time, people might value it differently. Okay,
True.
so the
I like how,
hamburger
you know.
is, let's say, people will
Yeah.
pay seven.
So it's gonna basically be under parecon. I think is what he's saying is it's gonna be a lot more people based under parecon compared to the market, where that shit can be very. I don't even know if he's saying this, but this is my two takes anyways. The demand of a product can be very easily manipulated under a market economy, whereas under parecon, it's going to be a lot easier to see how much the people value it, and then you can determine a price based on that.
$7 for it,
Okay.
right? Okay, so that's what they'll pay for it.
Okay.
Okay, back to LeBron James.
Okay.
The people watching LeBron James in sum total pay, let's say, $50 million for it.
Yeah, but that sum total doesn't. Firstly, there's a lot of problems with it. So, firstly, nobody is paying just to see LeBron James ever.
Fine, but we
Sure.
both know that. Come on.
Well, no, because this is all like you can't just like strip away all these parts because then obviously my argument seems absurd. So, firstly, nobody's paying to see LeBron James. They're
It is
paying to see
absurd.
LeBron
You don't
James
realize
play.
that.
What's up?
No, I'm just saying his argument is absurd because he doesn't realize that.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Come on.
Well, no, because this is all like you can't just like strip away all these parts because then obviously my argument seems absurd. So, firstly, nobody's paying to see LeBron James. They're paying to see LeBron.
That's bullshit. People will literally show up to a fucking baseball game or a sports game literally just to see one person play. So many people fucking do that. It's so stupid. I remember when I used to be a fan of the Chargers before I realized they were fucking shit. I
Yep.
remember, I think it was LT, the quarterback. I've always wanted to see him play. I would have paid to see him play, but I was only fucking 7 years old and broke at the time, so.
Mm.
And there are plenty of other people like that who have a favorite athlete or player or whatever the fuck, and they'll pay that money just to see them play. That's so fucking stupid.
Mm.
James play in the NBA, right? So that's already like one huge thing. So you're paying for access for that entire institution. Firstly. Secondly, no individual is willing to offer LeBron James over $20 million. Collectively, if everybody wants to throw one or two.
I mean, that's how much he gets paid, and that's determined by like one individual, like this, like the fucking manager of the. I'm not exactly sure how it's done, but I believe it's either like a manager or a group of people determine how much each player is paid
Mm.
based on the demand for that player. Like that, they create contracts for players. I think this is how it works in soccer, at least, and I'm basing this off of fucking FIFA, so I might be wrong, but they determine your contracts and how much you're gonna get paid for the year based off of how much people like you. Like fucking Christopher Ronaldo, or not how much people like you, but I think your skills too, like how many goals or points you scored. Like Christopher Ronaldo or whatever the fuck is
Mm-hmm.
gets paid a lot of fucking money because people want to see him, and I think also how well he plays also is also taken into account. But it's mostly how much people want to see that guy because he's super fucking popular, because he's really good and probably charismatic and hot.
$2 at him. Well, like LeBron doesn't have a way to collect, that type of revenue. Now, maybe they all came together and they formed some investment structure and then bought him out to go do something they could. But like, it's a little bit more complicated. They're saying, well, since everybody is willing to pay some amount of money to see an institution that contains LeBron James, therefore he's worth more than $20 million. I think I reject that analysis. I think it's too simplistic. There's a lot of stuff that's going on here in terms of stuff that's building value around LeBron James.
Okay, I'm not sure how we're gonna.
If the like, here's the thing though, right? If um it's true that there's also a lot of people who want to see everything around LeBron James. Like, obviously, you want to see him fucking play against people, right? But like, why does he deserve all that money then? If everything else is taken into account, like the stadium and shit, like people wanting to see him play in a certain stadium, why does he deserve all that money? It doesn't really, and then other players are paid less. The institution might be paid less than LeBron fucking James. Why should he get all that fucking money? It's a weird ass argument. He doesn't deserve all that fucking money. He's not the only one playing. He's not the only one paying for fucking time in that stadium or whatever. It should be equally distributed.
Going to get past this,
Sure.
but let's try. You said that the hamburger,
Mm-hmm.
The Hamburglar.
it made sense to you to say what the hamburger is worth in society turns out to be, let's say about $7, the amount that, whatever it is, the amount that, people are willing to pay to get the hamburger.
Okay.
Right? Okay. So if somebody produced, 100 hamburgers, it would be $700. If somebody produced 1,000, it would be $7,000. Now, you could produce too many, so it was waste. Okay,
Sure,
but
but
let's forget about that.
Yeah.
Let's forget about that. Okay, so if the person is producing hamburgers, and they produce long enough to produce, I don't know, 100 hamburgers.
Okay.
Do you think we should pay them $700?
What do you mean by what should we pay them? What we ought to pay them, or that should is also a really loaded word.
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't.
Well, because should can mean like morally, like what are they entitled?
If you're not willing to say should, if you're not willing to say ought, if you're not willing to say what's right, what's better, and what's worse, then there's no way to evaluate anything.
No,
you can't. You can't say something is bad, and so you have to stick with what you have.
No. Okay, hold on. I totally reject this. So we can make normative statements without them being.
Wow, Disney's fighting back against
My
the fucking.
God, why do you have to be so pedantic about this, dude?
Because it's Destiny. He's a fucking. It's fucking Destiny. He's always been like this, but finally he's actually putting up a fight. What do you know?
Moral. For instance, you ought to run 100 yards to do a 100-yard dash. That's an amoral claim, but it's still normative, right? So if you tell me, like, what ought we pay for a cheeseburger, well, that ought can be a moral ought. Like, what are they entitled?
Are you against dictatorship?
Not intrinsically, no.
Are you against slavery?
Not intrinsically, but with the way that it plays out, generally, yeah, it's very hard that like slavery is going to align.
I'm not sure that we can have much of a discussion.
I don't think you know what that means intrinsically.
I'm gonna fucking die, dude. I'm not intrinsically against slavery.
Anyway, in an essential or natural way against slavery. That's basically what he's saying.
No.
I wanna.
Natural slavery is okay.
I wanna burn something. I
want to burn Destiny at the stake because he's so stupid. The dude's such a fucking wannabe moderate because he's like. He wants to play middle ground on this shit. Like, I'm not intrinsically against slavery because I'm a moderate. I'm a centrist. It's like, fuck you, dude. No, slavery is bad under all circumstances. There is not one single circumstance that you can say where slavery is okay. Not one. Or dictatorships, not the same for dictatorships. Even if it's guaranteeing a decent outcome for everybody, dictatorships are still fucking bad because what if you end up getting somebody who's a fucking asshole and then genocides 6 million people like Hitler? You can end up getting something like that eventually because of dictatorship. Maybe it won't cause any problems in the short term because you get a good dictator, but in the long term, maybe like 2 fucking dictators later, you're gonna get an asshole. Like, come the fuck on.
I don't know how to. Maybe I should offer something positive, and you should take these views that you have.
Michael's so fucking taken aback that Destiny. He's so fucking taken aback that Destiny won't condemn slavery directly.
Wow.
I mean, just because it's an unpopular opinion doesn't mean it's a opinion.
Oh my gosh!
You're trying to be.
He's realized Destiny has realized he's been conceding too much during this entire debate, so he decides to fucking he decides to be a contrarian on dictatorships and slavery of all fucking topics to do it on.
Have much of a discussion. I don't know how to. Maybe I should offer something positive, and you should take these views that you have and attack it.
Okay.
Because I can't I can't. If you can't say that you're against slavery, if you can't say that you're against dictatorship,
Okay, well here, let me
then
ask you: Are you opposed to?
then I don't see how
Sure,
you have any values.
sure. Are you opposed to slavery?
Yes,
Why?
It's so fucking simple.
For the
Just
love
say
of God, you
yes.
dumbass. You
Just
have
say
no idea what you're
yes.
because
doing.
slavery, many reasons,
Okay.
but the fundamental reason is that in a slave arrangement,
Mhm.
one person gives up total control over their life, is totally subordinate to a slave owner. It turns out that they also get very little.
Okay.
I would also be against it if the slave owner was benevolent and gave them a lot. I would even be against it if the slave owner gave them more than they might get if they left the plantation.
Okay,
I'd
so then
still be against the institution of slavery.
sure. So then let me propose two societies to you. In one society,
I
everybody's
would
poor,
not
people die of
care,
diseases and
dude. Shut up. Ah, doesn't matter what proposed society you say, it's still wrong,
So
bro.
true.
sickness, people blah 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 blah. It's a horrible society. In another society, people have houses, food, can get education, etc. But they're basically enslaved. They have to do like a certain type of job, right? Which society do you favor there and why?
If everybody is dying,
Mhm.
right, that society is completely impossible to have any
In
positive
about 5 minutes is where I'm gonna be. Is where I left off, and it's gonna be completely new territory for me.
sentiment toward, right?
Sure.
People are all dying. In the slave society that you described,
Mhm.
and people have houses, etc., it makes no sense because in slavery you don't have your own house, you don't have anything. But let's
We
imagine
could
a society like that, and
sure.
and we come close to this society because we have wage slavery.
Mhm.
But in any case, in that society there would be some good and some bad,
Okay,
or
so
at
that wait,
least
so
some better than
sure. So
disastrous.
my
And some
position and your position probably aren't as far off. Now, when you ask me, would I ever be okay with slavery? Pragmatically, it's almost impossible to conceive of a scenario where you have the benevolent slave
good.
owner
I'll
who
take that.
yeah, of course, yeah. But I'm just saying that like intrinsically, I
This
don't
whole thing
value
Does
is
he
making
even
me go
know what the
insane.
fuck intrinsically means? You absolute tard.
Stop.
He doesn't know what
Stop.
fucking intrinsically means.
And I don't think you know. Think you know what
He
that
just
word
wants to sound
means.
smart. He literally just wants to sound smart. Natural
But dude,
slavery is slavery, and slavery is always bad, Steven.
Good.
owner
I'll
who
take that.
Steven, you need a
S-
thesaurus sometime if
Stephen
you keep using
Bennell,
intrinsically.
Destiny the Second. You fucking retard.
yeah, of course, yeah. But I'm just saying that like intrinsically, I don't value a
Intrinsically.
notion of like freedom
I
or
had
liberty. I
enough.
don't care about like
I
freedom and
just
liberty.
want a
Now,
meme where Destiny just says intrinsically and the whole image is like glitched out or something.
What do you care about?
that like people's outcomes are generally elevated. So like you have
Isn't
yeah,
okay, wait. I get that.
okay, yeah.
But isn't part of the outcome,
Mhm.
right? So in other words, we function in the economy,
Yeah.
right? One part of the outcome is that we get an income and we use that to consume housing
Sure.
and food and everything else.
Mhm.
Okay, that's one part of the outcome. Isn't another part of the outcome whether or not we're alienated, whether or not we have control over our lives, whether or not we're subordinate to other people? Isn't that an outcome?
Yeah, absolutely. So
Okay.
just real quick, just finish my thing earlier. So the reason why I generally like freedom or like liberty is because I think that the outcomes associated with that are generally better than like totalitarian outcomes for individual people. But
I get that.
yeah, but if you could show me, so like for instance, I think that there are compelling arguments now. Holocausting the Uyghurs aside and all the other horrible stuff China does, China is able to move in a very efficient manner. They have like a state totalitarian capitalist kind of economy, and they're able to move very efficiently.
Define efficient. Re- you, efficient economically in terms of how much money they can make. No shit, they're like one of the two global powerhouses of the global economy alongside America. They're definitely efficient at making money and generating a profit. But what they're not efficient at is making sure that everybody's fucking happy. There's literally fucking suicide nets in China for people who are depressed so they can't jump out of buildings and die. They have suicide nets at the workplace so you cannot jump out of the building and die. Like, what kind of fucking it depends on your definition of efficient because if you're looking at it from a capitalist sense, yes, it is efficient. But if you're looking at it from a basic human decency sense, it sucks ass really badly. Come the fuck on. Capitalist brain is so rotten.
Result of that. I think you can make strong
Yep.
arguments in favor of that, even though they have severely restricted freedoms. I'm just trying to say that
If they have, you know what? It speaks for itself.
like intrinsically, like freedom isn't something I care about. I'm just looking at like the
There
outcomes of
are
the people, right?
trade-offs.
Yeah,
In
sure.
other
Yeah,
words,
sure.
what
I'm
you're
gonna
pointing.
drink every time he says intrinsically.
Did he just say it again? No fucking
I'm
way.
just gonna do it with water
He
though.
did.
Like freedom isn't something I
Okay.
care about. I'm just looking at like the
There
outcomes of the
are
people, right?
trade-offs.
Yeah,
In
sure.
other
Yeah,
words,
sure.
what you're pointing out
I'm gonna
is
get
that there
fucking drunk from every time he says it.
are trade-offs.
Sure.
I agree.
Mhm.
But what I'm trying to get at is if we could decide that there were some things that we thought, other things equal, right?
Mhm.
Let's do it that way for a minute.
Sure.
Other things equal, more of X is better. So I would say more people with more say over their lives, as long as they're not infringing on other people's say over their lives, right, is better.
True.
If it doesn't diminish other stuff even more dramatically.
Yeah, all
More-
else equal, then yeah, more freedom is probably better. Humans seem to enjoy being able to make choices between things sometimes. Yeah, that's
Probably
generally true.
better. Okay. How
Well,
about
I
more
say
diversity?
I say probably because there is a paradox of choice. When you present people more choices, oftentimes they're less happy with what they choose than if they would have only. But like in general, I agree with you. I'm being a little
Okay.
pedantic. I just want to be like
How
very
about
clear.
more
So
diversity?
would people prefer more or less diversity? Like in terms
No.
of
Is more diversity, other things equal,
Mhm.
right? Better than more homogeneity.
I think that gets more
On
more
not
fundamental than economics.
What do you
I
say?
would
other things equal,
Mhm.
right? Better than more homogeneity.
I think that gets more
On
that gets
I'm
more
not asking-
fundamental than economics. I would say yes, but like a white
Okay.
nationalist would probably say no, or some other type of like ethnic
Okay,
nationalist.
but
say
you
no.
would say yes. And
Yeah,
I
I
don't
would.
mean just diversity in that sense, but all senses. Diverse products, diverse cultural options,
He's going
diverse
above and beyond right now.
living situations, diverse, etc.
I mean, yeah, me personally, I like that. I like a diversity of these types of things. Sure.
Because you can enjoy various options yourself.
Exactly, yeah.
And because even more, additionally, even you can't do everything. None of us
We're
could do
going into
everything,
territory
right?
I haven't seen
So
yet, by the way. So up until this point, I've seen everything.
if other people are doing other things, we can vicariously enjoy and learn from that also.
Yeah, it's possible. Sure.
Okay.
Pizza
Okay.
time.
What about solidarity? The idea that a society is better to the extent that people are concerned with each other's well-being, and so the greater that level of solidarity, right, the greater the extent to which people aren't antisocial, right, aren't totally concerned with the most narrow, just themselves, but have empathy with others, that makes for better outcomes, and that outcome itself is better, and it also makes for other better outcomes.
Yeah, I
Agree
mean,
on that?
yeah, of course.
Yeah. Okay. And now we're back to self-management, which I don't know whether we're ever going to agree on.
Sure.
Anyway, okay, there's this economic model called participatory economics or participatory socialism.
Hell yeah, we're
It-
getting into my baby. We're getting into my fucking economic system, which nobody's ever heard about.
Purports to be an alternative to what has been called 20th century socialism, what's been called centrally planned socialism, market socialism, and capitalism. In
Hell
other words,
yeah.
it's different from all of them. And it tries, I would argue it does, but that's just me, right? It tries
Because you're
to
daddy.
deliver a set of to offer to provide a set of economic institutions in which people's income is a function of how long they work, how hard they work, and the
Base.
intensity that they work, and the onerousness of the conditions under which they work, as long as they're doing socially useful labor. So in other words, I can't dig holes and fill them in really
Yeah.
strenuously.
Also, real quick, just because I know idiots will ask the question, you would make obvious exceptions here for like disabled people and stuff like
Of course,
that. I mean,
everybody gets.
Yep,
Yeah,
okay.
people get.
Cool.
Yeah, of
Okay.
course. Okay.
So
That should answer your question earlier about the autistic people.
it would also deliver, to the extent possible, in all circumstances, self management, meaning people would have a say in the decisions that affect them proportionate to the degree that they're affected. It would deliver by virtue of its roles, by virtue of the implications of the jobs, right? Um, uh, Concern, mutual concern. Call it mutual aid if you want. So, in other words, if a market, if we could agree, I don't know whether we can, but if we could agree that a market is a contest in which you get ahead, but somebody else loses, uh, and in which you have a narrow perspective looking at your own well-being, but not anybody else's well-being, and that it produces that kind of individualism. Well, the assertion is that the institutions of participatory economics do the opposite. They create a context in which people come to be aware of and be concerned about other people's well-being because they're all mutually connected and their well-being is quite mutually connected. Now, if what I'm asking you, I guess, at this point, I would think you would think this guy's crazy. There is no such economy, which would be fine. But if there was such an economy, if an economy could deliver
Oh
equity,
my
if
gosh,
it could
smell it.
deliver self-management, if it could deliver solidarity and diversity, and if it could be efficient, if it could get the job done, right?
Mhm.
Wouldn't that be a desirable economy to have?
What do you guys think, based on what you heard? Any objections, guys?
I'm gonna ask Amity first, or should I go first?
Whichever. I feel like you have a couple of issues.
The only thing I have is, well, I mean, it's not necessarily an issue because, like, an economy like that's starting to sound like a bit better and better each day. Like I've been listening to.
It sounds like a good
Um,
compromise between like communism and capitalism. It sounds like the ultimate in between, which like I don't see any like logical issues with it besides the fact that it's probably not gonna happen. It seems unrealistic. Like that one guy told me a couple days ago, which I was like, okay, fucking loser. But go continue.
so
Oh shit, someone drinking?
Hello?
Hi. Were you
I,
listening to out? Were you listening?
Oh, I had to get up and use the bathroom. Me sorry.
Oh, son of a bitch. Okay, you didn't hear anything, so unicorn. What do you have to say?
so my biggest thing is this, right? That's my proposal.
Okay.
We have everyone fill out a demographic survey before they vote, so that way they can actually like sort out like how much this vote would count versus other votes
Mhm.
for issues that affect people.
Mm.
Because otherwise, I'm not sure how you would be able to like predict or you know predict or like determine votes. Anyways, Amity, are you gonna say something?
Well,
No,
to
no.
to respond, there's he doesn't elaborate on this in the video at least so far, but there's different. I don't know how would you say it, layers in terms of decision making, and different councils is what they're called basically. There is the workers' council, which is basically the um parecon version of a business where you get to where it's like a democratic workplace and everything. That's the workers' council. There's the neighbors' council, which is the neighborhood, the local community. That's where you can make local decisions based on that. And then you have what's called federations, which are basically, I guess you could say, the stand-in for the typical government, where you can have people vote on a citywide level to a national level on certain policies like healthcare or major economic decisions that affect pretty much everybody. And I believe there's a way you could do it where you can send like delegates that represent each city to be able to vote in a way. And if they do a really shitty job and vote against the interests of the people, essentially, or let me put it this way. I think I'm not super well versed on this, but what would basically happen in terms of making a nationwide decision would be the city each city votes on a certain way, and then the delegate goes to like the the big meeting, and then they end up making a decision based on what everybody voted for, basically. I think that's how it would work. I'm not sure if he elaborates it on here, but that's how I would imagine it works, at least. Um, and then for like I don't know what to say besides that. That's kind of like the basic fundamentals of how decisions would be made in terms of like actually carrying them out.
Mm.
So people would vote um certain, so it'd be kind of like a little bit like what we have now, where people would
In a
just vote
way,
in people for different local committees that would make decisions
well, not
for
it
that would
doesn't
aid in taking
necessarily
decisions for
work the
people.
same way, because unlike right now, you can rotate them like every time they make a decision or something like that. They
Yeah.
are always able to be recalled. You can have you can have it to where you rotate the representatives each time a decision is made. So like every week you have a new person who's making decisions, and if you don't like that person, you can just vote them out of the rotation entirely. There's a couple of different ways to do it, and each community can decide on how to do it, which is also
Mm.
more of a way of giving people the power. They can choose how their delegates are chosen and
Mm-hmm.
whether to vote them out and stuff. Sorry, sorry, something just happened off the
It's fine.
mic.
It's fine.
But yeah,
Happens to me a lot.
yeah. So what do you guys think?
Hmm. Hmm. I think I mostly agree to like most of what you guys have been saying.
Cool. Do you have any objections, Unicorn?
I I don't at the moment. I'm just kind of trying to understand the system myself, really.
Do you have
Yeah,
any
same.
other? Do you have
I
any other
suppose like there's
questions?
many different approaches when it comes to like democracy. We're trying to find the most fairest way possible.
Yeah, it's. I would say this is the most well thought out economic system in terms of an alternative to capitalism and socialism. But there's a couple of things which I have to fill in
Mm.
terms of how stuff would be made, and I think that kind of needs to be up to the person. I'm not sure how in depth he goes on in it on these topics in his books. It's probably a lot more in depth than what's going on right now, and my understanding might be a little bit shoddy, but that's how I envision it, at least. Are you guys ready to get back to the video, or do you have any questions?
Nope.
Okay, cool.
No.
Oh, 1 second. Ah, shit!
Pog,
Drop my
pog,
little
pog,
thing.
pog.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. So now my task would be to convince you that the institutions that I favor
Mm-hmm.
are actually institutions that can accomplish that.
Okay.
That's the hard task that I have, right? Uh, and let's call it participatory socialism, since that's a word that since Bernie Sanders has come into vogue. Um, okay, so the how to
We
do
can
this?
start with your idea on jobs, on how you differentiate how many hours people
Jobs.
work, the types of jobs they work, and how that works. We can
Okay.
start
This
there.
is gonna be
Mm-hmm.
good.
Okay, so
This is a
imagine, so
good.
we're
Yeah.
talking about
I said
workplace,
it's
basically.
gonna be good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
And the three changes that are fundamental that I would propose. The first change is that you have a workers' council, and that the workers' council is the prime decision-making body.
Just like I said.
Now, there may be a work team, and that work team might, be because the people in it are more affected by the tasks that they're doing together, which the rest of the workplace isn't doing. They would have responsibility more for those tasks than for the whole workplace. But basically, the workforce is responsible. There's a responsible decision-making body, so
Mhm.
workers' council.
And then
Now,
to
the
be
second,
clear, this council would be democratically elected by the local workers of that plant.
no, it's the whole workforce
Oh, the whole workforce is the workers' council.
is the workers' council. Now, they may delegate sometimes.
So basically, just like I said, businesses, but in terms of parecon.
Okay.
But the whole workforce is the workers' council.
Okay, gotcha.
And sometimes it would be one person, one vote, democratic, but not always.
Okay.
You remember we said the thing about the thermostat. Well, the same thing is true here, right? That is, in the workplace, some decisions would affect some people a whole lot more than other people. and those decisions those people would have more say in.
Okay.
Okay, so that's this principle of self-management and a workers' council.
Sure.
Now, the next issue is, well, let me give you a practical example. In Argentina, not that long ago, there was an economic crisis, and many firms got into huge trouble. And the owners of the firms decided to bail out. And when the owners bailed out, in almost all cases, the next tier of empowered workers also bailed out, engineers, managers, accountants, and so on.
Okay.
But the workforces decided, because they couldn't, they had nothing except this job, right? They decided to take over the plants, and this happened at hundreds of plants. So the workforces took over, and they in fact did create workers' councils.
Okay.
And they did institute democratic decision making, and to a degree, even self-managed decision making.
Mm-hmm.
They also equalized wages. Now, I wouldn't exactly do that. I would say that workers should get an average wage if they work an average amount of time at average intensity and have average onerous conditions.
Mm-hmm.
And then they would all get the same. But if some were working under worse circumstances or some were working longer hours, they would get proportionally more. Of course, there would be no wide divergence, right? You can't work 100 times as long as anybody else,
Okay.
or 100. All right. So that was the second thing they did. And
just curious, for these companies, how do they function without like some kind of white collar work? So like accountants to like figure out ordering, engineers for the complex.
Exactly. Let's get to that in a second.
Right.
I'm continuing on with that.
Gotcha.
These firms were failing. It's important to remember that, right? So it's not just how do they function without. They were already failing, right? So they had to turn things around and proceed. Okay. They did that. How did they do that? Well, some people filled those roles, is the way they did it, right? And I was in a meeting of about 50 representatives from 50 of these factories in Argentina.
Okay.
And at the beginning of the meeting, and I was there to give a talk, and at the beginning of the meeting, I said, let's go around the room a little bit and hear about some of your circumstances. And we started to do that. And at the beginning, people were quite lively. You know, here they were meeting people from other parts of the country who were doing what they were doing, and everybody was upbeat and, you know, was happy. But after 2 or 3 people spoke, it started to get not so happy.
Okay.
And after 5 or 7 people spoke, it was maudlin in the room. I'm not exaggerating, okay? And then one person said, you know, I never thought I would say anything like this, but maybe Margaret Thatcher was right. Maybe there is no alternative, right? The British Prime Minister, who made famous that slogan, there is no alternative. All the old crap is coming back. We took over the factory. We established workers' councils. We instituted democracy. We equalized wages. We got the job done, but it's begun to feel in just 6 months the same way it felt before. And some of them were crying. And so then I said, why? And they said, human nature. They said, it's just the way it is. It's just the way it is. It's like you shouldn't blow into the wind. And I said, well, what if it's not just the way it is?
I like that one fucking chatter. Ha ha ha, I'm good. I'm glad they are crying. Oh my gosh. Chat's so fucking ruthless, dude.
How did you deal with the problem that you needed some people to do various jobs of the people who left? How did you deal with the problem that you needed somebody to do accounting, like what you raised? How did you deal with the problem that you needed somebody to do other administrative, previously managerial tasks? And they said, well, we went around and we asked who would be willing to do it, and various people volunteered. And we proceeded from there. And I said, so before very long, your workplace had the same division of labor that it had had before the owners left, right? You were back to having a division of labor in which about 1/5 of the workforce was doing empowering tasks, and 4/5 were simply following instructions. doing disempowered tasks, rote tasks, repetitive tasks, etc. And they agreed. And after a while, it became clear that all the old stuff coming back meant that that 1/5 of the workforce was doing all the decision making, even though everybody could decide, right? They created a situation in which people had the right to decide, but only 1/5 had the wherewithal and the information and the workplace in established skills to participate in that decision making.
This is why I say that participatory economics would not work if we just switched to it like tomorrow or something. People are stupid. They do not have the information or knowledge to be able to run a company the same way that we can do it right now. Most people don't know how to do that. It's
Yeah.
going to take a while to educate people on how to do that, but
I do know you're more
eventually.
of a like you're more for slow transition than anything,
I
Pug.
am pretty much an incrementalist, I guess you could say. I'm
Yeah,
not like an
incrementalist. Yeah.
accelerationist at all. I think that's a
Yeah.
horrible idea. You see, every single attempt at socialism in history failed, and I think it is in part because of not incrementalism, accelerationism. They wanted it too fast, and then it ends up collapsing because they don't actually think out how the fuck are we gonna do this? We don't know. We just give the power to this one guy who turns out to be a fucking asshole and turns it into an authoritarian dictatorship. They don't know what they're doing. They just give this power to this one guy that speaks well. And that's going to keep happening as long as we don't make incremental transitions to it in order to learn more as we keep going. As long as we don't do that, we're going to continue to fucking fail over and over. So I agree with them. So, like you said here, the issue is that most people were not aware of how to run these companies. Only 1/5 was able to do that. And that led to their downfall because it's pretty obvious. If you hire a bunch of like dumbasses to try to run a
Yeah, but
company for like accounting or programming or
to
some
be
shit.
fair, like I do want to show you a video at some point, Pog, about like the fact that reforming or like these could do because like I don't know because a part of like like in being incremental is the fact that inevitably that you may be putting like incremental way of like of like transitioning to another system. However, there is the notion that if you are like putting increments of like the better system as you go on, people might end up conflating these improvements with the existing system rather than the new system.
Oh yeah, for
Therefore,
sure.
people might end up thinking that, oh, maybe the old system isn't bad after all if these increments are something that can be possible because it's hard for them to attribute it to a new system from ideas from a new system rather than the old system.
Yeah, that's entirely possible, and I think you see case issues with that in social democracies like in Scandinavia and shit. A lot of
Yeah,
these, I guess you could say, socialist policies like guaranteeing welfare and uh,
yeah,
what's it called, healthcare to people, which are socialist ideas, not capitalist ideas. They
yeah.
attribute that to capitalism for some dumb fucking reason. And the best way we can remedy that, I would say, is to educate people, get politicians who know what the fuck they're talking about into places of power so they can start to educate people more. Do I think that's possible? I find it unlikely that's going to happen within my lifetime, unfortunately, but down the line, maybe in like 500, 700 years, we can get there.
Mm. I suppose. I suppose that's where we differ, you and I. You're an incrementalist. I am more for like
Trying to get it now.
instigating revolution and stuff.
Well, I mean, like the thing is, I consider myself an anarchist in part because I'm not. It's not that I'm opposed to revolution, because I do believe we could probably use revolution to accelerate to the next step in the incrementalist change to participatory economics. We could do a revolution to switch from a social democracy to market socialism, and if you could prove that can work, I'm all for it. But I wouldn't say it's like the first choice in terms
Mhm.
of um, trying to get to the new thing. Try everything else first. Revolution is like a very last resort, in my opinion, but I'm not completely opposed to it like
Mhm.
I used to be.
Mhm. I know. I mean, like that's what my democratic socialist friend says. I because like yeah, they like if there is somehow a way, like he would tell me, if there's somehow a way if revolution can be instigated without everything falling apart because of lack of planning, then he would be open to it. But yeah, I understand the
Yeah, that's
perspective of wanting things to like slowly transition as opposed to like things going rushing into the whole thing without like any say on like what the hell are we supposed to do with a
yeah.
new system that people aren't informed in. So
That's
I
the
get that.
thing with revolution. Rarely do the people ever like come together and form an actual plan. They just get a revolution, then they overthrow
Yeah,
the
because
government and they don't know what the fuck to do next. We've
yeah,
seen that
because
plenty
the
of times.
inevitability, yeah, because the inevitability of like forcing a new system is that we will end up having certain hierarchies when it comes to
Oh yeah,
like
for sure.
having to keep that system instigated. Because like there will be hierarchies only, and
You
you can
have to
argue if
have
it's
a
justified
hierarchy
or
of
not.
you have to have
Yeah,
a hierarchy of some form immediately after a revolution
yeah,
in order to establish something.
yeah,
And that's another issue with revolution that I do take. But like I said,
yeah.
if you can remedy these problems with the revolution, then I wouldn't say I'm all for it necessarily because I don't want to fucking like end up having innocent people die or whatever. But I would say I'm not entirely opposed to it compared to like where I used to be. I used to be like a big reformist, a democratic socialist. Like, oh, we need to elect our way there, and it's like obviously that's not gonna fucking work. At least by itself, we have to do a bunch of other shit, mutual aid, strikes, and stuff like that. I'm in favor of a multitude of ways in order to achieve what we need, and revolution can be one of them,
Alright.
but it's like not a top not a top choice when it comes to that, especially because it's going to be super hard to convince people into a revolution given the historical precedent that we have right now with revolutions constantly failing and turning into like Venezuela and shit.
Yeah.
It's going to be hard to convince anybody on that, so I really doubt we're going to see any progress on that. So
That's
I
what I mean. Because like that, because when it comes to like practicalities of like how to instigate a new system, it is an incredibly like I wouldn't like not right word's not broad, but I mean like an incredibly complicated and complex situation. I mean like as an anarchist and like part of like and such and so, they're always like when it comes to like actively like that participating and like actively doing something to for that system, there is always praxis in a sense, like
mhm,
just like even if like if because like I suppose in a sense like if I were to go about it personally when it comes to like acting out my own like own political beliefs as an anarchist, I would like do praxis, like I will do mutual aid, I will like if I ever run a business I want to run a workers cooperative or something,
mhm.
of course like do a lot of socialist stuff in a sense.
Yeah,
And like and I would say like in the meanwhile while doing all of this, also like consider the fact like what would be my action should there come the time that the new system is finally gonna be able to like everyone or like or at least a majority of the population finally ends up agreeing we had enough of capitalism, you know,
yeah,
because
for
like a
sure.
part of me is optimistic in a way that one day somehow some way the majority of the population will agree, you know, we had enough, everything is
Well, I
collapsing
mean,
because of late stage capitalism.
we
And you know,
do have that kind of right now with how many Gen Zers and shit support
yeah.
socialism, but the issue is convincing them on like accelerationist ways such as revolution and shit to be able to forward to that. I don't think you're gonna be able to convince them. Out of genuine question though, do you think that we'll be able to see the revolution in our lifetime at all?
Personally, no. Only because there's still so much
We have
I
to do.
think that we need to do. But
We're
like
so
at the
far
same
down
time,
the capitalist
at the
rabbit
same
hole.
I'm not like complete. I don't think it's completely impossible. I would say that yeah, we have a long way to go, but I would also say that there there the ideas for it have already been disseminating and proliferating amongst like media and stuff, of people being like, "Oh, we will have a revolution. Oh, we should have a revolution. Or we should do this and that." And there might be some people, maybe like a small like a small sample of people who like attempt, but in all actuality I would believe like if the whole system actually being part like in like a grand scale, I believe that would not happen in our lifetime, not yet
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have anything to say, unicorn, or
I don't really have much to say. Hold on, wait. I gotta make sure my mic's on. There we go.
yeah, you're on.
All right. I don't exactly have anything to say really, so can
Okay, let's continue on with the debate.
Okay.
all right.
So the third thing, oh, and I mean, I'm sure you're thinking, well, come on, Michael. These people who were remote workers were doing the accounting, and the factory turned around. The answer is yes. And I was a little surprised by some of this stuff too, especially the scale of it. So
Wait,
in
I think
one
we
of the
might have
glass
missed something.
factories that I visited,
Let's
I
go
was
back to
talking
that.
to this woman who was doing accounting.
Whoops.
Some I mean, I'm sure you're thinking, well, come on, Michael.
Sorry, I'm gonna rewind it a couple
Pay
minutes.
1/5 had the wherewithal and the information and the workplace in established skills to participate in that decision making. So the third thing, oh, and I mean, I'm sure you're thinking, well, come on, Michael. These people who were remote workers were doing the accounting, and the factory turned around. The answer is yes. And I was a little surprised by some of this stuff too, especially the scale of it. So in one of the glass factories that I visited, I was talking to this woman who was doing accounting. And I said, well, what was your job before? She said, I worked at the open furnace over there. Uh, and I wouldn't have lasted out of the 10 minutes. I mean, literally. I mean, the temperature was ludicrous. The motions were rote motions over and over again all day long. That was her job. And I said, and you took over the job of handling the books? She said, yes. And I said, well, what was the hardest thing that you had to do to learn in order to do that? And she was sort of bashful and didn't want to answer. And so I said, well, was it learning accounting concepts? No. Was it learning how to use the spreadsheet? No. Was it learning how to do the No. I said, well, come on, tell me, what was it? And she said, first I had to learn to read. And she wasn't kidding. And so the point is 80% of the population is made ignorant to fit slots in the economy that require passivity.
So just so I can be clear here, do you
He's
think
right.
that
A lot of the fucking population is made stupid in order to preserve the status quo. You can see that in the American
Yeah.
system, by the way. Our fucking education system is retardedly bad. It is so
You-
fucking whitewashed and
Yeah, I'm
propagandized with
aware.
so much American propaganda and shit.
I'm aware.
It's really fucking bad, and I think, and it is on I don't think, I know it's on purpose in order to keep people complacent with the status quo. They do not inform you about socialism or anything at all besides capitalism in like gov class and econ class. I know because I went to fucking high school and shit. They don't inform you on any of that stuff. Either that or they paint it in a super bad light and just associate it with the USSR, and that's why we have so many fucking issues with like, oh, communism is bad because of fucking Stalin and shit. It's such a fucking issue in this country. People are made to be retarded, so they cannot think critically.
I also want to add that we are literally the only country that glorifies stupidity in the way that we do.
Oh my gosh, we we literally fucking glorify people like Elon Musk and Donald fucking Trump. Those
Yeah.
those guys are idiots. They're so
Yeah.
stupid. And it's like, oh my gosh, man. We live
I
in a
think it's because
But
country.
they just identify with those people.
Yeah.
yeah,
The fact that like,
No,
oh,
it's not.
if
It's
they're
not that they.
stupid and can make it in life, maybe I'm
It's not that they
stupid. Maybe,
identify with it. It's that they think
Yeah.
that they can also be that. They can also be as rich as them, based on the small
Yeah.
chance that you know. That's the
No, it's
entire. That's
because
the
I think
entire
because
fucking
like you
argument.
have to think about it this way, like because Elon Musk is stupid. Elon Musk is stupid. Like
He's an
if you
idiot.
can agree on that, he's an idiot. But, like I think it's because like they have the same values in a way they would observe as Trump or Elon or whatever, and they think A. Because if they were to look at a liberal rich man, if that is possible, I suppose, or they would probably not be as they would probably identify much with them as opposed to like Trump or Elon Musk. Keep calling them Eleanor Musk. What the fuck? But anyway, yeah.
Yeah,
Eleanor Musk. He
Yeah.
has a transition.
Elon Musket rifle.
I don't know why I called him Eleanor Musk in my head.
Imagine, fucking imagine that's his actual name, Eleanor Musk. That's funny. I'm gonna start calling them that on Twitter now. I'm gonna call him
Oh
Eleanor
no.
Musk.
Just also have his hair in like a really braided bun too. Just like Photoshop him on like a 1900s picture.
Oh my gosh.
Jeez.
Okay, let's continue.
Alright. Um. Oh,
Wait, what were you gonna say?
sorry.
Were you-
Before we get, I was gonna add something to my rant first.
Go for it.
Mm.
All right. It's actually a lot more insidious than that.
What is?
It's not only Elon Musk and the value of like stupidity and
Oh yeah,
stupid
for sure.
behaviors.
Yeah,
So like, I don't know if this happens to later generations in high school. Like, I graduated high school probably 10 years ago now.
I graduated in
But
2016, so
yeah,
you're
I don't
older
know,
than
it's
me,
whatever.
boomer.
I am old. But like,
What the fuck was that
uh,
noise?
no, it's the way that old people sometimes would make noises. They'll go like,
Realistically, you're just a millennial, so you're not that old.
Millennial.
millennial,
Millennial. Okay, let's get back on
more like
track.
a
What were we gonna say?
millennial. Okay. So what I was gonna say is that we value stupid people in our schools. We have media surrounded by stupid people becoming popular. Us praising people for only their looks, but not even for their personalities.
Oh, for sure.
Um,
Every single
claiming that
TikTok influencer.
yeah. Oh, there was like one that actually was particularly ugly on the inside. Her name is like Renata or something, but she's one of the most beautiful women I've ever seen. So like every time like she would get canceled, there would be like three other like profile accounts with her, and there'll be like fan cams of her being
Uh,
all perfect and stuff like
I hate
that.
that shit.
Uh,
Okay,
Mm.
continue on your main point.
So the main point is that it is like it is kind of stupidity and ignorance is kind of encouraged in all levels. I think like the
Mm.
only places that don't value stupidity and ignorance would be like not public, private schools.
Mm. Yeah.
I don't know. Private schools are very fucking iffy too. Like they have their upsides, but at the same time they're also susceptible to propaganda, especially religious schools.
I
Oh my
mean, we
gosh,
can argue. We can
religious
argue that
schools.
like we can argue like it's like encouraged because we all most of societies nowadays is just under capitalism, and seeking knowledge would end up like one not like seeking knowledge may end up not being valued only for the sake that status quo. You already said that, but yeah,
Let's continue on. We might
because
have to.
knowledge means like delve into like certain areas that you never really took. So people end up fearing, oh, what if you get into communism because you went to college or something like that.
The only thing people get
Weird.
into with college is fucking liberalism. Liberal indoctrination camps, am I right? I might need to
Exactly.
go to bed soon, by the way, because I'm getting tired. But are you guys available
It's fine.
tomorrow to watch the rest?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, like,
Yeah.
I don't have class around this time, so I'd probably be free by then.
Okay,
Depends, though.
let's keep watching for now, though, until I fucking
Mm.
really need to go to bed.
Until you, yeah.
95% of people are capable of stepping into like 95% of society's jobs. Like, I'm not
I
going to
mean,
ask you.
each person into every job?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
No. I
Because
couldn't
like,
be a doctor.
well, yeah. Well, I'm not gonna be that uncharitable, but like, because obviously we would agree that doctors probably shouldn't shuffle around like this. But even insofar as something like a
Oh, no, I wouldn't. Let's wait.
Whoa.
There's no shuffling involved in this.
Okay.
All right. So now the question is, what's the solution then? All right.
Or well, I mean,
if it's
I
true,
have so many
go
questions about
ahead.
even accounting. Like accounting insofar as like
Woman.
accounting can be really hard, or accounting can
Yeah.
just be like, oh, like I'm just making sure the
Yeah.
deposits line up every day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
All right.
it's
Well,
okay. Okay, yeah, keep going.
if it's true that a corporate division of labor, 20% of the workforce doing all the empowering tasks and 80% doing disempowering tasks. That's what we have in the United States. That's what they had in the Soviet Union. It's basically the same. Call it a corporate division of labor. Uh, if it's true that that creates a context, creates outcomes, use your way of thinking about it, creates outcomes that delimit the life possibilities of 80% of the population, that cause friction between the 20% and the 80%, which it certainly does, that don't utilize the capacities of the 80%, then it's a bad thing. It's a negative thing. So what's the solution? So we said what equity was and what the equitable distribution of income would be and the self-management for decision making. And this is the third key feature. It's balanced job complexes. And what it means is, or what it constitutes is, that each person does an array of tasks as in a job. That's true in every society that ever exists in every economy. That's by definition. But we choose those tasks in a job in such a way that each person is doing a fair amount of empowering and disempowering work. And yes, that means that current doctors, so let's say there's doctors under the current regime, and let's say it wasn't the case that they spent most of their time playing golf, and that they really do work 40, 50, 60 hours a week doing surgery. Well, in this new kind of economy, they would not do that, right? They might do 20 hours of surgery a week, and they might clean bedpans, and they might do something else. But they wouldn't do only surgery. They wouldn't do only accounting. They wouldn't do only jobs which convey information and knowledge and skills while other people are doing jobs which are debilitating.
That's good. I like that. I hate the concept of specializing in one single place because it's like you're gonna get bored of that job eventually. If you do nothing but like
Yeah.
fucking doctor stuff all your life, it's gonna get
Yeah, for
boring. And then it's exciting at first, right? Because like you're getting to be a specialized doctor, you're getting to be in construction or whatever. But eventually you're gonna get tired of it. You're gonna get bored of it, and then your satisfaction goes down. When you have
I
a system
suppose
like
like
what
I suppose like it becomes tolerable only for the sense that like it's a lot of these sort of like the managers and bosses and whatnot that like end up having these systems in place. They made it they think it's tolerable only for the fact that during their time it's tolerable because the buying power of the money they had was different. Therefore, they tolerated these horrible conditions because they were compensated well, at least for their time. But nowadays, it's becoming intolerable. Not only because people are just being the class consciousness is starting to like awaken, but also the fact that yeah, it's gone to the point that late stage capitalism has made working for a lot of establishments unbearable.
Oh yeah, I fucking hate working.
Yeah,
I hate
yeah,
working at least right now. It's so fucking
yeah,
boring. And work would
yeah,
and I'm gonna be honest, work would be a lot
yeah,
more nice if they allowed for flexibility in what you can do. Like I only work
yeah.
in one position right now and it's so fucking
Mm-hmm.
boring. I really, really hate it. But but there was a position I
Mm-hmm.
liked that I used to work in, which I really want to
Yeah.
work in again. In this system, the balanced job complex system, we'd be able to rotate jobs, I believe, and you get to do
Mm-hmm.
everything. Sometimes you'll get the
Yeah.
boring job, but sometimes you'll get the good job. But at least you'll
Yeah.
sometimes get the good fucking job. You'll keep it spicy, you know?
Mhm. Yeah, of course. I suppose like in a different like economic system, job flexibility would be more viable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the change to balanced job complexes.
Okay, am I allowed to
What's the
ask?
bad outcome that you think might come from that?
I mean, there are several questions that I have about this.
Okay.
Um, so, okay, I'll just throw these out here. So my first one would be, obviously it would be incredibly difficult, I think, to determine what is empowering. So difficult to determine what is empowering that might even vary from person to person. Some people might enjoy some types of work, others might enjoy other types of work. So that would be like my first question. My second
Do
question.
you want me to deal with each one in turn?
Yeah, I guess if we can. Yeah, let me just make sure I have these written down.
I'll try and be quicker too.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, at
It's
least
how do
I
you
should be a
determine
little
what?
more open to all this, a little bit anyway.
He's
Because I
realizing that
always
this
think
guy
that
isn't
the
just.
purpose,
Oh, what were we saying?
yeah.
He's realizing
I
this
think
guy
I
is.
just like.
Sorry, we keep talking
Okay,
at the same
you go
time.
first. Jeez.
He's realizing this guy isn't a fucking idiot, so he's not able
Yeah.
to run circles around him and stuff. Destiny's done this before, where he will be
Yeah.
very like heated at first, but then like as time goes on, or maybe he won't be heated at all because he can detect the person isn't a retard. Like he debates a
Yeah.
lot of retards, but some people aren't. And he'll come across somebody who's well spoken and formidable, like right now. So he's not gonna be like super combative or yelly, you know. What were you gonna say?
I forgot.
Oh, wonderful. I should have let
Yeah.
the Dempster go first. Dems
It's okay.
first.
What is empowering?
Anyway, continue.
Yeah, let's go.
That would be the first one.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's not about what you like or don't like,
Okay.
right? That's a social determination. So, in other words, there are jobs that would be deemed empowering that I would find, or you would find, let's say, debilitating.
Okay.
But they're deemed empowering because doing them conveys information. We might not want to, but doing them, if you want to, conveys information and skills and interactions with other people, social relations, and so on, context with right that are empowering. That is, that prepare you to go to the workers' council and to participate in it. When the people in that meeting in Argentina said all the old crap was coming back, I asked, okay, what about in your workers' council? And they said, look, what's happened is on day one we were all enthusiastic, but by 6 months in, most of us didn't even go to the meetings, right? And the reason they didn't go to the meetings is because they had nothing much to say. They weren't prepared. They weren't confident. They didn't have the contacts, and they didn't have the knowledge of the workplace to bring opinions, right? And they didn't want to just sit there and be told what to do, so they didn't go anymore. It should sound a little.
Like I said, this would be an issue right now if we switch to parecon. And again, why I do not advocate for accelerationism. There is so much that can go wrong if you give all this power to a bunch of people who are idiots.
Yeah. Again, that's why I'm an anarchist.
Yeah.
I am against unjust hierarchies.
Oh yeah, for sure. I am too.
Yeah.
But
Mm.
like I said, if we just give the power to everybody right now, it's gonna fail. Like
Mm.
absolutely. I'm
Yeah.
an
I
anarchist,
mean, I
but it's like
suppose,
we
yeah.
can't rush it.
Yeah,
We
that's
have
true.
to educate people first in order to ensure this is a
Yeah.
viable alternative to capitalism. Because if
Yeah,
you
true.
don't, if you give like a fucking burger flipper the same
A
amount,
burger flipper.
if you put a fucking
Yeah,
burger
because like
flipper
the
in the
concept
position of
of
like
that won't like wrap in their heads most of the time, you know?
yeah,
Like, oh, because for a lot of the time they just think that their power in or sway in a company or whatever is so little, and they got used to that to the point that they have no idea what to do with power anymore.
exactly. They
Yeah,
don't know what to do with that power because they're not taught anything. It's just like they're
yeah,
thrown into it. And if we do that, yeah, it's gonna fucking fail.
Little bit
yeah.
like
But
elections
Sure.
in the
So
United States.
just kind of like refocusing, I still don't understand.
Yeah.
How would I determine, like, so let's talk about a doctor versus a janitor. I'm guessing you would say the doctor job is more empowering, that position. Why is it more empowering than the janitor?
Because when the
Huh?
suppose in a sense I kind of realized like if anyone were to be socialist, anarchist, or whatever, like left leaning, I think the best we could do is like do our best what we can do best realistically within our lifetime. Hope the next generation carries
If
on.
we
You know?
if we if we advocate systems which we would just believe work in our lifetime, I'd be a social democrat.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
True.
social democracy is the main left-leaning system that can work, at least right now.
Yeah. Realistic.
I would literally
Like
be a
not even
capitalist right now.
realistically. It's more like it's the most likely in a sense.
Yes, the
Because
most likely, but the issue is that
yeah.
system is still bogged down with a bunch of issues that are intrinsic to
Yeah.
capitalism, which is why I don't
Yeah.
show open support for it. If you ask me to
Yeah.
clarify, what do you think will work right now? I'll say social democracy, but if you ask me, what do you support? What is the end goal? It's going to be parecon. This is the
Mhm.
end goal right here.
Yeah. True. Mhm.
determine, like, so let's talk about a doctor versus a janitor. I'm guessing you would say the doctor job is more empowering, that position. Why is it more empowering than the janitor?
Because when the person who would be doing, let's say, doctoring as their full-time job, and the other person who would be, let's keep it in the hospital, cleaning bedpans as their full-time job, right? When they go to the workers' council, right, they would be very, very differently prepared, differently inclined to participate. The one would be exhausted, beat up by their job, and not have any information beyond a very narrow spectrum. The other would be very different.
Well, okay, hold on. I'm focusing really hard on this because I really don't understand. Because you're not saying that like a doctor wouldn't be like very exhausted from their job, right? A lot of doctors are very exhausted from
They
working.
might be, yes.
Well, they generally are. Doctors work like huge, like super long hours. Like their
Uh,
jobs can be incredibly
Yeah,
some of
tough.
this
yeah,
is
you need.
mythology.
That is true.
Yeah,
I've seen
that is. Yeah, because yeah.
my dad is a or was a phlebotomist, and he was a phlebotomist for like 25 years, I believe.
What
He
is
would a phlebotomist. They're the people who draw your
alpha
blood
bonus?
in the doctor's
Yeah,
office.
yeah,
He got
yeah, yeah,
so fucking tired of that job, and he would always come home fucking cranky like half the time because work is
yeah,
infuriating, and there's so many idiots
yeah.
at
Mm-hmm.
work who just won't do their job
Yeah,
and stuff.
I think
Doctor
like
being
when
a
the
doctor
issue
is a
when it
lot
comes.
harder than you think,
Yeah,
honestly.
I think the issue when it comes to like the doctor issue is one that like even in the like in the current system there isn't really already that much support. Like yeah, they are paid a lot well and stuff, but I don't think that's enough when it comes to supporting doctors
Yeah,
because they're going through like an incredibly hard job and also
and that's
the
another.
lack of doctors even to be
Yeah,
honest.
that I
Like
was
I know
gonna.
there are yeah,
Sorry,
yeah.
sorry to
No,
interrupt,
no,
but
you continue. No, you
I
continue.
was gonna say that the lack of doctors really doesn't help because if we
Mm,
had a substantial amount of doctors, because we're super under like the amount of doctors that we need. Is so little here because the education is so fucking expensive to become a doctor, which leads to doctors being overworked because they have to work 40 hours a week because it's like there's no other doctors. You're like one of the only ones to be able to work. And that leads to people being, stressed, beaten up like Destiny's saying and stuff like that. That's something we need to fix, and that's why I also advocate for pretty much no cost upfront education, especially for like doctor jobs, because we need so many more doctors. Fucking Cuba has more doctors per capita than America does, which is fucking insane to think about, but that's actually they really do. We need to fix that.
Okay, maybe
Sorry.
sure, but like we could also find janitors that like kind of like enjoy their work. Maybe it's like very easy. They do their job, they go home, and it's done.
Okay.
So like, what I'm just trying to figure out like what is this
Even if
empowerment?
that's the case,
Yeah.
even if it's the case, like the happy slave, but even if it's the case that a janitor likes the janitorial work, which is possible, I grant you,
Okay.
um, it's still the case that the work that they're doing is doesn't convey to them skills, information, knowledge, contact with other people.
Okay, wait. Let's break this down. You keep saying this. Okay, so this is what I'm curious. So you have skills, information, knowledge. So are you saying that like
Decision making skills. Let's
okay, so a more empowering job is a job when you say decision making, like gives you more control over your own schedule, or just gives you more general
it
knowledge, or
just certainly knowledge of your workplace and of circumstances.
I would say Michael's kind of poorly wording it here, but the way I would word it, at least, if you ask me, this nobody, is an empowering job would be a job which has more specialization. The more specialized your job is, the more empowering it is. Like a job flipping burgers, like I said before, is not an
yeah,
empowering job. It's a job that anybody can do. But an empowering job would be a job like a fucking surgeon where barely anybody can do it. That's empowering. Having a job
yeah,
which
yeah. It
and
gives
when I
you
say
yeah.
empowering, I mean like socially
Yeah, I mean, like
empowering.
yeah, in a sense, like that's one of the aspects of like justified hierarchies, wherein some people have certain expertise that makes it so that like their expertise makes it so that like to guide the whole team or like the people that who
Yeah,
have like
that leads
simpler
to
jobs, they
unjust
have like
hierarchies.
Yeah, yeah.
But
What?
the thing is, those are empowering jobs because not only do they have the power over other people and stuff since they're managers, but it's also a
Yeah,
job that not many people can do, which also leads to social empowerment. You probably get treated better and treated
yeah,
more respectably and highly
yeah,
because
yeah,
of that job you can do, which is
yeah.
fucking
True.
bullshit.
Yeah,
You shouldn't be
I think.
treated better just because you can do a job which not many people can
Yeah,
do.
I would say it's just like a flaw of human beings.
Oh
Like,
yeah, for sure.
in a sense,
But
like we
it's
all have
fixable.
egos.
It's
We all
fixable.
have egos. Yeah, of course.
But it's a big flaw in their capitalism
Yeah, true.
because especially when it comes to like expensive specializations like doctors and surgeons and shit, you have such it's impressive because like you're you're the only one who can like afford that shit learning that stuff, and it's fucking bullshit. Let's continue though.
because you can't participate in discussions and in decision making in an informed way if you don't have information and knowledge.
Yeah, I
If you
guess.
spend all your time working in a manner that is rote and repetitive and obedient, right? That is far, far less empowering than if you spend your time in part considering options, uh, uh, evaluating circumstances, um, accumulating information, interacting with other people in an equal fashion, which leaves you well able to, talk and discuss and so
Want it?
on. I mean, I don't know how much experience you have in workplaces,
An okay
but
amount,
and
but
So,
huh?
so, so Albert, like an example would be like when I worked in a warehouse, I worked in a factory of boxed furniture.
We've
Like
got a voice
basically,
coming from nowhere.
this is Caleb talking, the
Oh,
moderator
hi.
here. Sorry, I try to remain quiet during these things. But
Okay.
when I worked in a warehouse, I basically just put things in boxes all day. And if we tried to get any more involved in that, we were basically like shut down from that, told not to do that. So we made no decisions. We were not empowered over the process. That's what you would describe as someone who's not empowered. So to empower us in that situation, we would maybe they'd bring us in like once a week and ask us what we thought
No,
about the process or.
no. This the first reaction to this is maybe we should shift jobs, right? In other words, rotate jobs. But that's incredibly inefficient. So that's not a good solution, right? You can't rotate. You have to, right? I hope that's evident. The next solution is you sort of
Did we talk about rotating jobs earlier?
Yeah, we did in a
Oh
way.
shit. uh Maybe that's where I disagree with
If you
Alan
have,
because I do well not like rotating every week or something, but like when it
no,
comes to like specialized jobs.
yeah, yeah.
But some sort of rotation in order to spice things up. I do think that would improve worker satisfaction in the workplace at least. Because doing the same job over and over is fucking boring.
reduce the alienation and have some interaction. That's what you just proposed, right?
hmm
It's a little like you live in a ghetto, and it's horrible conditions, and every other week on Saturday you get to go into suburbia and be in a house for a day. That doesn't solve the problem. You still live in the ghetto. If the totality of what you're doing is debilitating and is deadening and is not conveying to you these capacities to participate, is in fact sort of reducing them, as school does by and large for most people, then that kind of um, um, addendum, right? While better than nothing, is not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is we create balanced jobs.
Well,
If
so
Joe was a surgeon in a, or if Joe in a participatory socialist society would like to do surgery, right? Joe pursues surgery and hopefully becomes good enough at it to be socially valuable doing it, and therefore to be able to earn an income in part doing surgery. But in the hospital where Joe does surgery, he doesn't only do surgery. He also does rote tasks or repetitive tasks or other tasks so
Isn't that
that
kind of rotating jobs though, or is he saying that you're doing all at the same time? Okay, I wait a second. I think we did talk about this earlier. Maybe not rotating jobs per se, which I think is kind of like okay, like viable, but like he's saying, I think probably would be better now that I think about it is indeed just giving everybody all the jobs at the same time rather than rotating out the jobs.
Mm.
Like a surgeon, like you can be a surgeon and stuff, but you can also do janitorial work. You can also clean the beds. You can also wipe shit off the fucking.
I mean, in a sense, at least it's a lot less stressful than like brain surgery.
Yeah, you're given more than one task to do, and
Yeah.
that's what I was thinking with the rotating jobs thing. But honestly, this sounds better. Just giving everybody all the jobs to do at the same time, so they can spice things up on the fly.
That his overall job complex is comparably empowering to other workers. And Joe can go to the workers' assembly, to the workers' council, and participate, but so can everybody else.
So I'm just trying because like you're a lot of this is like the one of the most important things of what you're establishing because it's very foundational and I have ways to address this in capitalism. So I'm not trying to like drill this really hard, but I have to lean into this really hard because it feels like when I
Okay.
ask you like what is empowering, like the skills and information and knowledge and the way you work with people, like I don't know how I could possibly measure any of this. Like, or I still don't even know what it means to be empowered. It almost sounds like you're saying like,
I'm surprised he's not bringing up like social recognition as a form of empowerment because it's like when you compare certain jobs to other jobs, like being a fucking veteran or a military person like a marine or something in America is a very empowering job because it gives you social recognition and it gives you not necessarily like a direct sense of authority, but it does give like this aura, I guess you could say, to you that makes people respect you more just because you're a fucking marine or whatever. That's also how in terms of how we would measure it, like literally, I'm not sure to be honest, but it's pretty obvious that jobs like that do give you some form of empowerment through social recognition and like default respect for just being that position, you know?
Hmm.
Yeah. Do you want to say anything, Unicorn? You've been a little quiet.
Oh, um, no, I'm good. I'm just listening to the debate here.
Oh, okay.
like white collar work versus blue collar work. White collar is empowering, blue collar is disempowering.
Almost. I
But
mean,
like, but
to a
when you talk
degree.
about like rote like performance of tasks, for instance, like I'm fairly certain that you could find lawyers. Like I've got a friend that works in corporate law whose job is probably more rote and miserable than like an electrician or plumber that works in the building. That those people probably get to exercise more creativity in terms of problem
Fine.
solving. Yeah, but like, would we really say that like that work, like the electrician or the plumber, is more empowered than like the lawyer? Or
Maybe. I mean, you're saying he is, and therefore we would say he is. What does it mean? You're asking for some way to
some
to get a grip on how you assess
yeah? How
such
can
a
I
thing.
like say like this
Okay.
is empowered? This is more empowered
Fine.
than this because of why?
And what I'm saying is it's because when you go to the workers' council, right?
Okay.
The issue is when you go to the workers' council, are you prepared to, inclined to, right, in possession of information enabling you to participate as in a full way? Or are you
Okay, I see what he's saying.
alienated and feeling while you're
Do you understand what he's saying?
Which which one of us are you talking to?
Both.
Kind of.
Mm.
So to put it more clearly, he's not necessarily wording it the best, and it took me a little bit to get the hang of it. But what he's basically saying is a job is more empowering based on how much how do I word it? But it's
Yeah,
like
it's fine.
based on how much knowledge you have to be able to participate in a workers council. So like as, as a as a janitor, for example, you're not going to be able to have the knowledge to make that many decisions in a workers council. But if you're a doctor who has a lot more knowledge in how things work and stuff like that, you're going to have a lot more say in the workers council in terms of like being actually knowledgeable into knowing what to do and what direction to go. If you do
Mm.
both janitor and doctor, then you're much more empowered than both of those positions because you can make even more decisions about whether you want to
Ah,
change,
that is true.
upgrade
That is true.
materials, or I mean, upgrade equipment, or if we should stay at the
Yeah,
current one, if it's like
that is
worth
true.
upgrading. Or when
Yeah,
it
that
comes to
is.
like janitor, you can make both the doctor decisions and you can make janitorial decisions.
That is true.
That's what he means by empowerment, I believe. It's just that he's not really wording it the
Yeah.
best.
Does he ever like is he considering whether or not such empowerment is like detrimental or no?
Uh, I don't think so. He's still trying to explain the concept of destiny,
Okay,
and it's
okay.
like I
God
understand
damn
it.
it, Destiny.
I
Anyway,
understand it. I completely
yeah.
understand it, but it's like, I mean,
Mm,
it's not exactly worded the best you can say.
I mean,
Like I
like I
said,
would say like there will be power like when it comes to like certain positions, like say like if like parents and kids and all that. Like there are always instances of power or like for or like in a way hierarchies that will end
well,
up
we're
existing
not
because of
necessarily
their.
talking about hierarchies. We're talking about the knowledge to be able to participate in the decision-making process of workers' councils. That
Mm.
doesn't really have much to do with hierarchy. I mean, you could technically say it's hierarchy because it's mainly going to be those people making the decisions, and they can technically. Actually, I
Yeah, I
wouldn't really
wouldn't.
say it.
Yeah, I'm just trying to
I
find a
wouldn't
better word
necessarily
for it
say
in a
that.
sense.
I wouldn't
I'm just
necessarily
trying to find a better word to say that because inevitably there will be some people who have a little more power than others because of their
because of
social
their
standing. If
knowledge.
they get knowledge, and of course, if like Sir Albert said, something like if they had like more positions in a say company or like a job or whatever, and then they end up inevitably having a little bit more power or sway than others in a
Well,
way.
I'm not
So I'm not
sure.
sure what
Well, I
kind of
mean,
word I could use for that.
I'm not sure they'd actually have more power per se because again, under the system, you're given more or less power based on how much a decision impacts you, right? Well, actually, now that I think about it, I guess you could say the decision impacts someone who's both a janitor and doctor more because whatever decision you're going to be making on a doctor or janitor is going to be affecting both of your jobs. So I guess you could say it impacts them more. Which, which now that I think,
Yeah,
holy shit, I'm tired. But it
it's
sounds
okay.
fair. It sounds fair for that person to have a little bit more power over what goes on than a person who can only do one occupation,
I
doesn't
would
it? Doesn't that seem
I
a
would
little bit
say
fair?
in a sense like the issue when it comes to like democratic votes and stuff is less about who has more power or what. It's more about the fact whether or not like because I think like one of the main issues has always been like who like all of the decision happen to be centralized to like one person or one governing body, and because like inevitably this is just one person, because like what if is
Well, there's gonna be
the
multiple
voting wait
people.
no wait let me finish. It was the voting power of 10 janitors a lot more than the voting power of this one person who is both a surgeon and a doctor, or like surgeon
It
and a janitor,
depends.
because like you know.
It depends on the decision. If the decision impacts the janitors more than the doctors, the janitors are gonna have more to say. But on the other side, if the decision impacts the doctor more, then
Mm,
he's gonna have a lot more say because it's like why should like let's say it's about upgrading equipment for surgery and stuff like the um like they're
yeah.
currently doing surgeries by hand and stuff, but they want to upgrade to that technology which was able to do a surgery on a grape, right? Why should the janitors have that much of a say in upgrading to that technology compared to the doctors who actually use this stuff?
Mm.
That doesn't make any sense for them to have that much of a say. Like they could still
Yeah, I
vote
would
on
say
it,
so.
but they don't have.
I would
But
say
it's like,
so, and I don't deny that. It's
yeah,
more of the fact, like we're talking about the situation, if one person happens to be both, you know,
yeah.
like
Um.
yeah,
Well, I mean, they
mm,
would have. Oh, if a person is both,
yeah,
and
like both
well,
a
it
janitor
depends
and a
on the.
surgeon.
Well, yeah, it depends on the decision. The um if the decision mainly impacts their job as a janitor, they're gonna have as much say as the other janitors because
Mm,
like it only impacts that one job. But if it impacts both the janitor and the surgeon job, then they're gonna have more say than the janitors because it's impacting you a lot more.
So what would happen if there are issues that affect the different types of departments equally? Would that whole thing cancel out and say
If you can
a
measure it and it impacts all departments equally, then everybody would have an equal amount of power. Again, I really doubt that'll ever happen, or it'll be super fucking rare. But in those cases, everybody has the same amount of power. Probably.
probably?
Yeah,
Hmm.
probably.
I don't know. Like the issue with democracy is rather complex. I suppose that's the reason why there's a lot of dissenters in the case of it. Like
Yeah,
like
I mean,
because I
there
think
are
like
issues that could pop up, but like they're
yeah, I mean like
remediable. They're issues
I
that can
would
be
say
fixed.
like I even if there will be issues, like it's still something we should implement because out of principle, because it's one of the
Oh,
most
for
fairest
sure.
ways we could do this decision making, you
Even
know?
if it does have flaws, the
Yeah.
flaws don't outweigh the positives, and the flaws
Yeah.
aren't justification for giving all that power to one single person or a small group of people.
Yeah, because the alternatives are just a lot less fair than what we could ever
For
think
sure,
of.
yeah. Okay, let's continue a little bit more, and then I'm gonna have to go to bed because, as you can see, I'm super fucking tired.
Yeah,
Actually,
I know. I know,
maybe
my
we should
dude.
maybe we should end it right now, and then we can continue tomorrow. Do you want to do like the same time tomorrow, or do you have time during the day?
Depends. I mean, my class ends at 9 and we started
I don't
at
even know
around
what time
11.
I don't even know what time it is in your time zone. It's
It's
literally
fine.
12:15 a.m. here. What time is it for you?
1:14 p.m.
Holy shit, you live on the other side of the fucking globe.
I'm from the Philippines, my dude. But anyway,
Mm.
yeah, go to sleep, my dude. I will
Message
be.
me. I literally have all day off tomorrow because it's a rest day from the gym, and also I have no work tomorrow, so we can continue this tomorrow. Just message me whenever you're available, and then hopefully Unicorn will be available at that time too. Unless,
Hmm.
what do you think, Unicorn? You want to continue tomorrow?
Yeah, sure. I'm actually getting tired as well.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, well, I'm
Yeah, you
probably
go
gonna
to sleep,
combine.
Westerners, while I do much things.
Hell yeah. I'm not sure if I should combine this stream and the next debate review stream together.